so I hope you're ready. Okay. I'm gonna stop the music and switch over to my presentation. And by that I mean part one of my presentation, because I only got to Who Killed Markiplier, and I am giving Who Killed Markiplier itself a very cursory treatment. So we set our scene in 1889, when my darling beloveds are born, most of them anyway. Okay, so I put their birthdays here. This is not, critical information. I just have headcanon birthdays for them. So they're here. Also, my district attorneys, I have two. I don't talk about them too terribly much in this presentation. Auden Lorenz is the one who's the DA that goes to Who Killed Markiplier. Goes through Who Killed Markiplier, I should say. Levia is my other self-insert who does not. They avoid Who Killed Markiplier. So again, that's just for funsies because they're my self-inserts. I have to mention them here. So they're born our main that we're going to talk about, the main crew who we know and love, are born in alternate universe Los Angeles. Yeah, I had to give them a winter birthday, Kenna. So we're in alternate universe Los Angeles. As I don't know exactly how strongly canon it is, but I think it's definitely meta-canon. I think definitely lots of people headcanon that our darling boys are friends as children. They live very close in the same neighborhood. They are pretty inseparable. Also, by the way, I have a shit ton of fan art in here. I didn't draw this. This guy has the credit on it. I have all the links. So all the links to the fan art that I have, of course, some of the artists have deactivated, blah, blah, blah. I have a link to a post, so I can dump those somewhere after this for credit. But I love this art so much. I have this art framed in my office so that I can look at them and cry a little bit, just, whenever I need to. Anyway, I love them. Oh, yeah, Astral, what the hell am I talking about? And then, obviously, William, yeah, okay, anyway. I love them. So, a couple things that we need to talk about. One driving facet, one theme that plays into the events of canon, the events leading up to Who Killed Markiplier, is the economic status and economic differences. So I've kind of plotted this here with some sample pictures. That is actually a picture of Mathea Castle. Holy shit, it's really big. Mark's family is loaded, okay? They're rich. They've had money for, a long time. And that is how Mark grew up. So the Butlers are not with like Ben's parents. I know, right, Kenna? I was like, what? I mean, maybe it's a composite image, like a panoramic type thing, but I don't know. That is the building, and it's big. So the Butlers, when Ben is growing up, they are not in the Applier household. They're in, some other household, but still, it's like a well-off household. So effectively, his, the kinds of things he's being taught, the kinds of, linens he's using when he's eating, he's having an upper-class upbringing, even though his parents are, I don't know what the word is, serving in that capacity. So then, the Winsites, which I never say out loud. I also have the name derivation for all the names I came up with. And these names were derived pre-space. So now it's very funny and strange that the W initial. But anyway, so they are also, a pretty well-off family. They're not quite as like filthy rich, right? But they're, in good standing. So I just pulled this stock image. I found it something that looks, stately. It is definitely a big house. It is definitely a nice house. They, pay people to do the yard work. It's like that kind of economic. This is my house I grew up. This is the Google Maps picture from 2014 in the house I grew up in. So I was like 15 when this was taken. Oh, can you see my cursor if I'm gesturing here? Just so I know. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Anyway, so this is of course where I put my district attorneys, because they're my self-insert. So like economically speaking, like they, have a nice house. They, they're not poor. Okay. Um, William's family is poor. So not like destitute, but like not well off. Like out of the group, William's family has the least, capital to throw around, right? So they have an apartment in the city, still pretty close to where Mark and Damien live. Like they're all within walking distance, which is, I guess, a function of being in a city. And so that is a picture of, I think that's technically New York City, if I recall correctly, but shush, it's fine. So like something, something like that, like a vibrant city street. There's like little shops, there's, people living there, things going on. So this is kind of what we're working with for the families that they're growing up in. So, young actor Mark, he is loved, but again, he's got like old money parents, right? So they have a lot of baked in, ideas that are not necessarily conducive to like nurturing a child, right? Okay. So it's like, it's not like he was neglected. It's not like he was abused, but like he was kind of not loved in the way he needed to be loved, right? Like, yeah. So, but as a kid, he is relatively extroverted. He finds it easy to make friends. He takes the leadership role in his friendships. Um, Well, I wouldn't say that, Kenna. Because he's got a certain way he's supposed to look and act, right? And like a certain way he's supposed to behave, and so there are those expectations, and it's not like he's being like loved on and cuddled. Like he needed more warmth than he got because of who he is as a person. Anyway, okay, so he finds a love for like playing pretend games, which I mean, all kids do, right? But then he is, yes, that's it, yeah. But then, of course, as he's growing up, he's discovering theater. There is, some opportunity for him to get into acting in high school, and he totally falls in love with that. And he does good in school. He does fine in school, like he's, a B student or whatever. Young William is loved, but like logistically, he's left to his own devices a lot. His mother works, his father is in the military. He had an older brother who was in the military and died in the line of service. Their family is low income. So like he spends a lot of time playing outside. He spends a lot of time at Mark's house because he has friends. He's well liked. He's not good at school. His mother felt really strongly that he should get a proper education. Like she really wanted to see him graduate high school. I think his older brother probably didn't, probably, maybe even she and his father didn't, right? So she really wants him to finish school. William takes up some odd jobs like in the summers. So, he's having a much more, I don't know, a much different childhood, right? And then he, grows up always planning to enlist. He looks up to his father. He looks up to his brother in as much as he, remembers him. And like, that's what he wants to do. Damien and Celine, their parents are really good parents, in contrast to Astral's canon. Their parents are really good. I repeat this because I feel like, I don't know, I get excited about good parents because there are so many bad parents. They are loved. They are so loved. They are nurtured. They are given attention. Their interests are validated. I'm happy for them, okay? They deserve this, right? So Damien is born disabled. He's autistic, and like I don't claim to diagnose whatever condition that like leads to his need, but like he has some kind of physical thing going on, right? Like he's not an able-bodied kid. He's not necessarily a healthy kid. He's not like, on the verge of death, but like, right? So again, their family's pretty well off. So like they have experience, learning how to behave at formal parties. They're enrolled in like classical music lesson, all that. Unlike the other two, they're more introverted, and they end up being less well liked because they're kind of weird, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody else here grew up as an autistic kid. It doesn't make you super popular. And then Celine, Celine is Celine. I love her. But she's a strong personality, right? So it's not like the whole neighborhood's going to be like, let's go hang out with Celine, right? So they're extremely close. And Celine definitely takes that protector role. And as they grow, like that's, a source of friction between them in their teenage years. Cause Damien's like, cool, I'm a grown ass man, because everyone who's 15 feels like they're grown ass people. And I don't need you to do that. And she still wants to do that. They do really good in school. And I guess the only thing I didn't mention here. So Celine's like interested in, and her aptitude for the supernatural starts young. She doesn't really get super into it. She doesn't have the internet, right? So she doesn't necessarily act on it or delve into it, but like that kind of pull is there from a young age. So we talked about some economic factors, because that's definitely a driving factor in how we get to the events of Who Killed Markiplier. But in another one would be like romance, like romantic connections, right? So poor Damien is afflicted. And it's not like this would be the case for everyone with his orientation, but it is the case for him that he falls in love with all his friends. So being in love with Williams, like starting like very young, like that is a very initial attraction between them. As a little kid, you can't really tell, like it's not like a differentiated feeling, right? But he definitely has like a crush on William. He's definitely, and that grows as he gets older. And of course, he's growing up in a society that is very heteronormative. Like that's not even presented as like an option. Like it is the default. You're gonna grow up, you're gonna take a wife, you're gonna do this, that, and the other thing. So once he starts to realize, wait a minute, like this way that I feel isn't just friendship, like this is different, this is something else. It's also like, wait a minute, I'm like not supposed to have this feeling. And then of course getting older than that, and then I think at more going into his teenage years is when he starts kind of catching feelings for Mark as well. And of course, then you're mature enough to begin to challenge the ideas you've been spoon-fed through your schooling years, and also met enough people, been enough places that he's like, okay, so this thing that I, was kind of told is not an option. This thing that I was told or was being insinuated was like singularly weird about me is not. Like there are other people who feel this kind of attraction. I'm not all alone. Yes, but so the flags here, this first flag, where's my mouse? Here we go. This first flag is the yes. So the queer flag, the demisexual flag, and the polyamorous flag here. So yes. And going into like their high school years, Mark and William, meanwhile, have now gotten old enough to start showboating about girls, right? Because they are that type of boys, right? And especially like playing off of each other, they have that kind of, I don't know if rivalry is the right word, right? But like if William is expressing interest in girls, Mark is also going to be like, yeah, I also think girls are hot, even if he doesn't, right? So they start kind of doing that, like, oh, wow, she's really, I don't know, of course, the exact terms in use would be different in their day. But if one of them, yeah, okay, normal boy stuff, right? This is the innocent version of boys will be boys, is you start getting old enough to start being interested in girls, and then you start acting stupid with your friends about girls, right? Okay, so anyway, but that does make it seem like they're straight, right? But really they're kind of just doing, that's kind of a natural developmental stage in this society, right? Okay, so, hello, please turn my slide, thank you. William is not straight. William is in fact in love with Damien because he has eyes and ears and has met him. So he does have a bit of like a I'm not good enough for Damien complex, which is going to come from his upbringing, is going to come from like his personality, like Damien being something he feels like Damien deserves better. Yes, I also feel that way, right? Okay. So maybe I'm projecting a little bit. Who's to say? Another factor that comes into play is William also, like from a young age, like has feelings for Celine, right? So um, in our society, this is another thing that people aren't like, yeah, you could have a like it is okay to have feelings for more than one person. Um, and then of course in a heteronormative society, not only does that push him towards, okay, maybe I should only focus on my feelings for Celine, or maybe those are the only legitimate ones. Like maybe this feeling for Damien is just like a spillover. And I didn't put it on the slide, but of course it's another factor that like they're twins, right? So that kind of makes it, if it was just two random unrelated people, maybe this would be less of a thing that would make him nervous. But that's not the case. They're twins. He's got to be a little carefuler about it, right? And so some part of him being like, okay, maybe my feelings for Damien are just like because I actually like Celine, and like in my head I'm like making them inner. So he's got, and I don't know how much he sits down and thinks about this, but this is like the subconscious what's going on. Also, with the heteronormativity, it is easier for William to pick up on Celine's feelings for him later in life because there are authorized ways for her to express those feelings. Whereas with Damien being a man, like there's not those avenues. There's not the same ways for him to signal. So that's William. And this is the bi flag. I think this one's more common, but because I pointed it out. Hello, Sky. Welcome. Welcome. We are talking about the Hooked Markiplier main characters in their younger years. We're in like high schoolish. We talked some about economic standing as one, since that's one major factor that plays into the events of Who Killed Markiplier. And now we're talking a bit about like initial sparks, because of course the romantic back and forth is another big player in the events of Who Killed Markiplier. Mark is also not straight, and this, it looks a lot like the bisexual flag. It's actually the ambisexual flag. Mark doesn't figure out that he's not straight until like college, though, and like he's again like going back to like the idea of them like showboating about girls, right? He's interested in the concept of romance, but like really he's not ready for it. Like he wants to talk about it. He wants to be like, yeah, I would like to make her my girlfriend. Yeah, I would like to do this, that, and the other thing. But he's like not actually ready for that, right? Which is completely valid, obviously. And I think a super normal thing that happens as well. Um, so he does start like having some feelings towards Celine in like the high school era, but like honestly, like she is out of his league then. He is not mature enough for her at all. And Celine can totally tell that he has this crush forming, but definitely she is not interested in him like that, like whatsoever, right? Um, and Mark might have acted on it. Again, I don't really think he was ready to jump into that kind of thing as a high schooler. But he might have tried. He might have dabbled were it not Celine, because she's so close to their friend group. He knows he would have gotten raked over the coals, teased about it, right? And then if it didn't work out, it would have made everything. So he doesn't act on anything with Celine, but he does kind of have feelings for her at that point. Genuinely, she is yeah, no, okay, anyway. So next up we are going to move to another major factor that affects this timeline is the World War, the Great War, the only one that takes place in this timeline, and also the one that I am alleging starts in 1904. And you may ask me, Cadmium, what grounds do you have to say that there was only one World War, and also that it started in 1904? And I have lots of grounds. Let's go over the grounds, if I can escape this slide. There we go. So we're going to talk about like the timeline in general. To talk about the war, we have to talk about the broader timeline. Thank you, Kenna. So our favorite man, Real Mark Fishbach, has said, quote, and I quote, as far as like if you needed a time zone, from like the 1920s to the 1950s would be the time zone that I would imagine, talking in terms of when Who Killed. This is what he has said on the time period for Who Killed Markiplier. So that's our word of God, right? That's what he has said. There's more, Kenna, too, because like they talk a little further in that live stream, and something that Amy and Catherine point out is like Abe is really more of a 1980s trope, like the noir trope. That's a 1980s trope. So the time zone is ambiguous. That's what we have. That's what our word of God. Mark says, "Here's what I would give you." Another thing, another concrete piece shown in canon is the existence of this relatively high quality security recording. Here, give me 1 second. I'm gonna like hiccup or something. Okay, I'm back. So here's a screenshot of like what that looks like, and it's like black and white, but again, it's a pretty clear picture, and there is synced audio visual. So that doesn't really happen in like our local timeline. Local here meaning like real life, meaning like local reality. These are terms I'm going to use interchangeably. That doesn't happen until like the 1970s, right? So even if we're saying, okay, Who Killed Markiplier takes place during this time range, the technology shown within, even if this is not counting the things that are obviously not supposed to be there, like the TV. This is something that's explicitly shown in canon to exist. This technology, it comes much later in that technology doesn't become available in the time. Okay, you get it, right? And I just made a note there. Mark did not mean to put 2017. He was like, oh, it'd be, let me put the dates to show what was the last few days leading up, and he didn't think about the year. That's another quote from the live stream. The link is there. I can share it if you want to look at it. So that's a note on technology. My next point that I want to look at, if I can get back to my slides, here we go. We're like the number of years we need for marriage and divorce to happen, right? Because if we want to talk about when Who Killed Markiplier takes place, we have to talk about, okay, well, how old are the characters, right? And to have enough time to get married and then divorced, I looked up some stats on when that occurred. Here they are. There's a graph. You can look at it. So like the average age in this 1920s to 1950s time period, we're looking at like around age 22. And again, you can talk about, would they have gotten married earlier since they knew each other but so here's a data point to consider when we're talking about, we know canonically they got married and then divorced. They statistically probably got married around 22. And then, of course, the big one, William is a colonel, which normally you would have to be like minimum 40 years old to be a colonel, because nominally that requires 22 years of service, allegedly, right? So this was what I'd had like in my back pocket for years, except when I did more research again for this presentation, there were some conflicting sources about like when exactly, but it is definitely the case that like, and I have the full list of ranks here. This first one, the single swoopy guy, is the private, which is like the entry level. That's where you start. And then the colonel is all the way up here. You after this, it's just general, 1 through 5-star general. So like, regardless of the number of years, it takes a lot of service, right? So this is kind of one thing that a lot of people find and stumble on. One thing to note, locally in World Wars I and II, the demand for competent forces did lead to early promotions. So again, I put some links on my slide here. Sometimes this was like temporary, where it's like, okay, for the duration of this war, we'll consider you a captain, and then after the war, you'll go back to your old rank or whatever. And then there's also the concept of like a battlefield promotion, which it seems like is less common the more modern you go in terms of war. But that's like, okay, you just like you risked your life and saved this guy and did this major thing. We're gonna right away here, promote you or whatever for that thing you did. So in the context of a war, especially a major war, especially a long-running war, it is the case that there were early promotions. So maybe you don't need 22 years of service. And that's what I'm saying for the colonel, is that that's probably the case. Hang on, let me just peek at my next slide. Okay. Yes, so that's kind of what I'm saying here, is that a major factor is he does get an early promotion, at least one, because we have this longer war instead of two separate, shorter wars. So we're going to talk more about this as we go. Yes. Look, he worked hard. This is a big rank. He can't be called a private. He worked hard to get there. That's valid. So yes, obviously these aren't the only pieces that we can point out for the timeline. There's definitely a couple other. Oh, hang on. My brain's small. Hold on. I had a whole nother window open. Guys, I'm dumb. Okay, anyway. Thank you. I worked hard on this part of the timeline, and we're not done with the war thing. We'll come back to the war thing. So we've just talked about 4 pieces, and again, those aren't the only pieces. You can look at other, what would be the word? Like other things that come up in canon, like the fact that Ben buys legal cocaine. You know, there are other things that you could say, okay, what time does this correspond to in local reality? Blah, blah, blah. And like you could also talk about the experience necessary for Damien and the DA. But like, so here's some things, right? And so what we want to do is split the difference, kind of. So we're looking at these ranges, this 1920 to 1950, this the technology being more like the 1970s, and time for Celine and Mark to get married and then divorced. That, if you want to focus on that, you can place them more born at the turn of the century. But again, that kind of pulls into question, okay, then we have a relatively short time to cover them going to college and the falling out, and you know, that would kind of be speed running the relationship, and then the affair, that relationship. So then on the other hand, if you want to focus more on, oh, well, I think, you know, we would really need more time to account for William's career, maybe then that pushes their birth dates all the way back to the 1880s. So again, we can kind of split the difference. We can kind of look at these things and say, okay, like roughly this kind of suggests 1889, which I also like because Mark was born in, like, real Mark from real life, born in 1989. So that kind of adds a nice parallel that I like. So that's kind of what I went to. So you may ask me next, you may ask, why so attached to a 1920s Who Killed Markiplier? Again, we're talking about this range. What's the motivation for splitting the difference to go here instead of any other of the decades we've just talked about? Most importantly, the rule of cool. And this is something we know Mark has used. Let's go. Oh, no. Yes. First, I have lots of examples. Okay. It's the 1920s. They're fucking cool. Okay. The aesthetic, unmatched. But also, we know, actually, hold on. Let's look at these pictures a little longer, right? Because it's cool, right? We have the flapper style. We have the Art Deco style. We have the speakeasies. We have the jazz. Okay? I don't think I have to convince you of this. Not least of all because a lot of the fandom goes with the 19... And I genuinely think this is why. It's just cool, all right? And we know Mark uses the rule of cool. So this is my little argument to say it is valid for me to do that, right? So here's a quote from the Damien animation explanation live stream. He's talking about this shot and he's saying, I'm not 100% sure what this represents, but it's fucking cool, right? And here's the shot without the text on it. Which I think is fair, right? When you're making a piece of fiction, when you're telling a compelling story, sometimes you just gotta go with what's cool. And the 1920s are cool. So, that's great. I think we can agree on that. But there's a war on. How does this? We were talking about a war a minute ago. So one of the pieces that we kind of didn't address with that splitting the difference, going with the 1920s thing, is that technological advancement piece. Like that doesn't really explain. Okay, we're 1920s. Then how do we get 1970s technology? That is another thing that happens with war. Either an ongoing war or just the threat of it drives technological innovation and development. And so I have like some examples here. One being radar, which in local reality was invented, discovered, developed, whatever you want to say, in 1935. So the wartime application of radar is primarily surveillance, tracking. The peacetime application is like a shit ton of things. Apparently, this is how we got microwaves, for example. Another one, nuclear fission. Obviously, the motivation was to use it for weapons, but nuclear power gets a terrible rap. It's one of like the cleanest forms of power. Like per capita, probably not the right word, but per capita, one of the safest forms of power, has killed or harmed way, 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 way fewer people per capita than coal. But that would be another presentation. ARPANET, which started out as a military project to facilitate secure, fast communication, that led to the entire internet. For better or worse, it led to the entire internet. The space race, and again, I could give a whole nother presentation on my feelings about the space race, but like some of the things that were of interest there for war purposes, like if we're going to go to war with Russia, were like intercontinental ballistic missiles, other methods of killing people, but of course, exploration and scientific advancement. I think many of us can probably agree, space is so cool. And it is a worthwhile thing for humans to do, to study it and maybe to go there, right? So, yes. And I also have here medical advancements. This one, someone should make a song about that. What a good idea, Kenna. With medical advancements, the wartime and peacetime application is basically the same, right? Again, this is kind of self-evident. You don't want soldiers to die. You don't want civilians to die. So I put I put one example list section here, talking specifically about the Korean War, because that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay. We're going to talk about MASH, which is a television series that ran for like 9 years and like 11 seasons. And it is about the Korean War. It's about it's wildly popular, Kenna. Like it's kind of a Tumblr darling, much like Columbo, and like there's like a certain there's fandoms for these groups of older shows. So this is a show that ran for 11 seasons about a 3-year war, right? So I must disclose that this is not my idea, this one that we're talking about here. I owe my life, and by my life, I mean my interpretation of the Markiplier cinematic universe, to this specific post. This is extremely foundational. I have the link. I can send it. Here's my little screenshot of like what I just said from this one user. It's a Tumblr post, so multiple users are involved. Anyway, so another Tumblr darling show, also was one of my dad's favorite shows, Star Trek. This takes place we're going to connect back to it. Hold on, guys. This takes place about 310 years after MASH. It is a science fiction show. It includes a variety of, advanced technologies and the fun thing about Star Trek is a lot of the technologies it showcased are, we have them now, like a cell phone kind of thing, like remote communicators and stuff like that. But so here's some examples of things that they have in Star Trek that we don't have in the modern day. And you could say, okay, in 250 years or so, how many of these might we have? You could talk about that. The warp drive, aka, the thing that facilitates interstellar travel. The holodeck, which is like creating an immersive simulation. Transporters, i.e. teleportation, which they use to get, on and off the ship onto planets. And then replicators. Wait a minute. There's a problem. That's not from Star Trek. Here's what it looks like in Star Trek. Replicators, which is like fabrication. So, you plug in, I want a hamburger, and you get spit out a hamburger. Did anybody recognize? I feel like my joke was. Anybody recognize my joke here? Do I need to explain the joke? This one is from Spy Kids. In Spy Kids, they like get an on-demand. Yes, that's the joke. They get like it is like a replicator, right? But it's not the Star Trek replicator. they like pop open the McDonald's meal. Anyway, so that's my little joke. It was funny. You all laughed. Yes, so Star Trek has very advanced technology. And, one could argue more advanced technology than we are going to get to by the year 2266. I'm also going to pause for a minute because I'm going to take a little drink. So if you have any comments, get them in now. I have Wober. Stan would be proud. Kenna, I've been thinking about this for 5 years straight. Oh, we will get back to Who Killed Markiplier. This is just all of my timeline evidence. I'm drinking Wober. Hold on. Hang on. This stuff. Fresh Aqua. Kenna, only when it comes to Who Killed Markiplier. On everything else, my brain is very small. This is the only thing I use my brain cells for. Okay, all right, okay. So you may, again, be asking me, wow, you're going all over the place. We were talking briefly about MASH. Now we're talking about Star Trek. What? So the thing is, oops, in my wrong window. The thing is, the on-screen canon, and I didn't include the quote explicitly, but I've talked to you all before about the fact that Mark has said anything he doesn't put on screen isn't canon, right? That his word of godding things into existence. He's not trying to say those are canon. He doesn't assert that he can do that. He asserts what is canon is only what's on screen. I agree, Kenna. I like this thing that he said to us. So the on-screen canon of MASH and Star Trek is that they take place in the same universe. So this is like a printout, and I will admit I have not seen the episode. I'm a #fake fan. It's fine. But this is like a printout of a family tree of a Star Trek character. And the name that's circled is the name of one of the doctors from MASH, right? So this is establishing directly that one of the characters in Star Trek was in MASH. And okay, all right. This is actually here because it's a reference. It's an homage. People working on Star Trek were a fan of the show MASH, and so they put the name in there to reference it, right? So, like, I'm not saying that, like, this was a mastermind decision from their team to make it canon that they take place in the same universe. No, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, the implications are, in the context of what we just talked about, the extended war that maybe went on for, however much content gives you 11 seasons over the course, played over the course of 9 years, however much content that gives you, that the Korean War, which only lasted 3 years in our universe, lasted longer in their universe, thus, setting into motion an advancement of technology that had like the ripple effect such that down the line in 2200, yes, so that the technology advanced faster, so they get to things like warp drives by that year that Star Trek takes place during. So that's the theory, which of course, again, really in real life, if we're being boring, we know that that's not what they meant, but that's the theory, right? So that's what I'm presenting to you all. In other words, an extended world war, only having one world war but having it longer, take place over more years, that can easily explain an advance in technology getting from like the 1920s to like the 1970s, like jumping. Oh, Sky, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. That's not. that's in my part 2. We're gonna talk about that in my part 2. Yeah, Kenna, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So we're not done talking about the war. I'm sorry, guys. We're still in history class. Pick your pencils back up. I'm sorry. So locally, we are gonna Miller, that's so funny. Someone please screenshot that and send it out of context. Hang on, that's really funny. Okay. We are going to use this to get back into the characterization, right? So this is why we're talking about the draft. Locally in World Wars One and Two, they did start running the draft shortly after the United States. And of course, I gotta say, guys, obviously, I am presenting things from a U.S. centric perspective because A, I'm an American. B, so are the Who Killed Markiplier crew. So, thinking of the United States experience in World War One and Two, they started running the draft shortly after the United States entered the war. The minimum age to enroll was 18. The maximum age varied depending on which one you're talking about. There are ways to get exempt from a draft. Notably, from between certain years, college enrollment was grounds for deferment. And then for World Wars One and Two, there was a dependency deferment for married men. So it was like, I have a wife at home, you can't send me to war. Because, as we know, back in the day, women couldn't necessarily support themselves in terms of holding a job, economics, blah. So, and then I have my little table here with like the percentage of people who participated in the war who were drafted is kind of what I was getting at with this table. So the Korean War, the figures, that figure is from this figure, the total served here, is from a government website, but like it was like, yeah, this was the total number of service people over these years. So that's not really the number of participants in the Korean War. That's the number of enrolled. So I didn't count this one. So, but among the other three that felt like there was better data, and I feel like when you're talking about a draft, the Vietnam War is kind of the one people think of. So it was more than half, more than half of the people, more than half of the soldiers who are fighting in the war were drafted. They didn't necessarily want to be there or volunteer. So when the draft began in the Markiplier cinematic universe, which again, I guess I didn't put it in here explicitly, my kind of vibe is that, okay, since it's a longer war, it probably started less quickly, or started it as a more isolated conflict. So the draft probably didn't start right away when the war started, which I again have pinned at like 1904-ish. Still, though, it would have started. A draft would have started when they would have been underage. So, like we talked about with William, he wanted to enlist, and as the war continues, the government has the motivation to drum up patriotic sentiment. And that's going to increase his, fervor to do this, right? It's something society is supporting and encouraging. But like I also said, his mom really wanted him to finish school, and especially, of course, having lost his older brother, she doesn't, she's more reluctant than she might have been, 20 years ago or whatever. So William has bold plans that he's going to drop out of high school, he's going to lie about his age on the forums, and he's going to enlist, and he's going to go, work hard to save the world. He doesn't do that. He doesn't follow through on that. He finishes school, but as soon as he turns 18, which is in the summer, like right after he graduates, he does sign up to begin his military training. So, and again, we talked about exemptions. Selena's exempt. She's a woman. They're not drafting women. The future district attorney, which, like I said, I have two. They're exempt because they're legal. They're both of my district attorneys are non-binary, but not in the eyes of the law. So they're not drafted. And then Damien is physically disabled, so he's not drafted. Mark was a draft dodger. He paid some doctor off, guys. Sorry, he did. I don't think. Yeah. So he does not get drafted. Because he doesn't want to go. So the next time period we're going to talk about is 1908 to 1912, when our boys are in college in alternate universe Portland, Oregon. Like a relatively prestigious college. So Mark, again, okay. All right. Guys, I love him. Okay? We got a real talk to each other right now. I love him. So I say this with love in my heart. But he got into college because of his family name and the fact that he could pay full tuition. Okay? I love him. This is how he got into college. The future district attorney enrolls on academic merit, and also the reason they ended up moving cross country. I don't know if I said this. I grew up in Pennsylvania. My district attorney grew up in Pennsylvania. So they kind of had to look for a college. Again, they're being considered a woman. It's not like they're recognized as non-binary. So they have to go somewhere that they're like allowed to go do a pre-law program. And so I think they had to look pretty far to find that. And then Damien kind of enrolls on a mix of both. Like he's good at school. He has the grades, but of course also he has the family name to be let in. Cool. And why Oregon? 4 seasons. Okay, I just said I grew up in Pennsylvania. I wanted them to have nice fall weather. I don't think I put the picture in here. There's a cute piece of fan art. There's a couple of fan fictions. I want them to hold hands, or at least think in their mind about holding hands when there's fall leaves falling. Okay. So now we get to talk about, this is the fun part of the presentation. Okay, we get to talk about Damien and the future district attorney. The ones who I want to walk through the fall weather, and the ones who I've written, they don't hold hands, but they want to. They meet very quickly. They're in the same program. They're both, pre-law. So they're in the same classes. They hear each other talk in class. They respect each other. And so, there's that interest. There's like, oh, you're not a fucking idiot, right? You have some interesting idea. Like you're actually a thoughtful, interesting person, right? So then there are like study groups with classmates like, oh, hey guys, we have this test coming up, let's get together. And so they spend some time in group settings like that. And as we know, they are partiers, so that they see each other at parties. So these are cases where there's lots of other people around. So then that becomes, hey, Damien specifically, I saw you were out of class. Do you want to copy my notes? Or, hey, future district attorney specifically, do you want to come study for this thing, right? So it's kind of being one-on-one, but still under the pretense of, like, this is for schoolwork. We're getting together for this purpose. But then, of course, that evolves into them just spending time together for the sake of it, kind of transitioning away from let's study, that's the only reason we'd get together, to like, let's just hang out, like let's just spend time together, we just like each other. So Damien, he's got that curse I told you guys about. So it's not like he's shocked when he develops feelings for them. But like the problem is he doesn't know how to identify when someone does have feelings for him, because he's spent the last like 10 years just assuming, and like talking to them about it would like risk everything, because he really likes them, and like he doesn't want to be like, ooh, I really like you, and then have them be like, ooh, maybe let's not hang out anymore, right? He doesn't want that, okay? But then meanwhile, my self-insert has complexes and will assume that they are imagining anything short of Damien sitting them down and being like, I'm in love with you and am going to kiss you right now, and then he does that. Like, that's the only point they'd be like, oh, okay. Anything short of that, they're like, nah. We're just friends. We're just buds. So that's them. I love them. I love Damien. Okay. All right. I'm pausing for comments, and so I can take another sippy. What? Hang on. Hold on, Miller. What? The lesbian sheep problem? You're gonna have to elaborate on that. We're waiting for elaboration on the lesbian sheep. We're waiting patiently. We must learn. Yeah, man. That's really funny. Okay, yes. So yes, they have the lesbian sheep problem. You're right. Okay. So then Damien Mark and the future district attorney. So Damien and Mark are roommates. Here's an example of a dorm room. Just because they're going to fancy rich boy college doesn't mean that they don't have to stay in a dorm, because they do. So Damien's the one that introduced is the future district attorney to Mark. They get along well. They become friends. And again, we know they're partiers, right? So they study hard during the week, or rather, Damien and the DA study hard, and Mark studies, you know, enough to keep being there. And then they party hard on the weekends. And of course, parties are not attended on the nights Mark has performances. They show up, they support him. He appreciates that a lot, and more than he is emotionally intelligent enough to articulate. And then later in their junior and senior years, all three share like an apartment style dorm housing. And I definitely don't have a picture of that. It lives in my head and is not realistic. And I'm attached to it. Okay. They all three share housing. Mark can absolutely tell that Damien is in love with the DA, and can absolutely tell that those feelings are probably reciprocated. But if he kind of calls them out on that and they get together, then they're going to spend a lot more time with each other and a lot less time with him. So he does not do that. Look, this is not like a mastermind. Again, I have to defend him. Okay, he's the love of my life. It's not like he's like, ooh, I'm gonna stand in the way of that. This is not. This is subconscious, right? This is like he's kind of feeling. He's feeling like preemptively left out, right? He's sad. Okay, he's not doing this to be an asshole. Also, he's also doing it, yes, subconscious jealousy, right? He doesn't want to be the third wheel, okay? Yes, Mars, no one wants to be the third wheel. Nobody likes that. Also, though, he has feelings for Damien, right? um that he's like ignored. He's not acted on them. Because also, this is the problem with Damien, Mark, and William, is like Damien caught feelings first and assumed William and Mark were not interested after, X amount of years. Then by the time William and Mark understand that they reciprocate those feelings, they're like, oh, well, if Damien felt the same, he would like say or do something, right? So it's like a timing thing. So Mark is assuming that Damien does not feel the same about him, and also that amatonormativity, he like it's really obvious. Yeah, Sky, you're right. That amatonormativity, he's like, okay, well, he's clearly in love with the DA, so he can't possibly also have feelings for me. Like that's not a thing, because they're not in a culture where that's a thing, where that could be an option. So this is what's going on with them. Nobody's acting on anything. Yeah. So then on Mark. So like we talked about earlier, in high school, like Mark's aspirations were for theater because there was no film when he was starting out. As he grows older, silent film becomes the new thing. And again, this timeline is going to be ahead of ours because we're assuming there's that technological advancement going on. And if we want to talk about film specifically, like the idea of having recordings, distributing recordings, the wartime application of those things would be like sharing like training videos. And again, like the idea of like faster communication, things like that are what would lead to propaganda. That's the one I was forgetting. Like distributing propaganda videos around the country, right? So there are reasons why they would be looking into that technology, especially again if we're thinking that this war was big enough to require a draft, require those they would need like training. So as this is catching on, growing more quickly than it does in our timeline, it's exciting. So the department at college, like the drama department at college, is not going to be like, all right, let's drop everything and go do this new film thing. That's not how colleges work. But colleges do work like you have a bunch of nerds in one place about something, right? Like you have every department is just a bunch of people who are really into that one thing, right? So everybody's excited about it. I mean, okay, there's probably always the people who are like, there's always the people who are like, oh, this newfangled technology. But I feel like that's pretty uncommon at colleges. Obviously, I have only my own experience to go off of, but the college that I kind of based off where I put them is similar to the college I went to, where it's like, like the vibes. So I'm imagining this department is very excited about the idea of film. So the classes aren't going to change. The like graduation requirements aren't going to change, but this is something people are talking about. This is something people are going to. This is something people are learning about informally or, at like seminars and stuff, like not in classes, but like they have, maybe they invite speakers or whatever. Right. Yeah, not for these guys specifically, but maybe for everything else. Yeah. So anyway, so he's getting exposure to some of this, but really his like training, because again, they're not going to drop everything and switch to this new thing that who knows what's going to happen. They're going to stick with the tried and true. So he's still doing like stage productions, like that's what he's involved in on campus. That's where he's performing in college. So then we're going to talk about Sky, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, suggesting. So then we got to talk about Mark and Ben. So we watched the Ben actor stream, which I call the Ben actor stream because it's really a Ben actor stream, right? Only Ben is there, but like I have eyes and ears. Okay. I love this stream, but they didn't meet like that, and I know, like I said to you guys, like I know in my heart of hearts that Mark endorsed that message. I don't care. That wasn't it. I will say, okay, Ben's probably been attending the same school, but obviously studying in like a domestic service program. So his coursework differs significantly. They do not run into each other until like senior year when they're starting to be like mixers and stuff. And like, because I think a domestic service program would have to have some kind of practical, element, you know what I mean? So like there's these things where they're like, cool, let's have our like upcoming Butler graduates do stuff for for potential people in the area who might be looking to hire more staff members, right? And Mark, being Mark, would probably stick his nose in there, right? Because he is a fancy boy with I don't know how to put this, with an inflated sense of what he needs and wants to do, right? So he's going to stick his nose in there and be like, huh, yeah, who's the cream of the crop? I want them, right? So he's sticking his nose around. Yeah, sure. That's a good word. Prestige, yeah. So they don't like become friends, but they become aware of each other. They meet. And it turns out they're from the same city, so they find that out. That's interesting. We'll loop back to them. I will say, tragically, in my heart of hearts, I don't focus on Ben a whole lot in this presentation, but I do love him. So then, checking back in with William. So while the other folks are at college, William is completing his military training. Military training does not take as long as college. It's like less than a year that he would be able to complete that. And I love you guys' reactions to the fan art. I also have this one printed on my wall. Well, not printed on my wall, printed on a picture that is then hanging on my wall. Because I love them a lot. Yeah, so we know this about William. He's a bit of a loose cannon, right? So, but he doesn't get himself into trouble really. Like he definitely needs some correction a couple times, but like he proves himself to be hardworking and competent. Like he's a good man. He's there to work hard, right? Okay, so he gets through the training program and like quickly starts rising up the ranks. He's doing what he needs to be doing. He writes home often. And like we talked about, he's promoted more quickly than would normally be possible. Like A, he's doing what he needs to be doing, and so he would get promoted anyway. B, they need more people in higher ranks because that's how the military works. Yes. Excuse me. All right. So another key thing that happens while they are still in college is in the winter of Mark's senior year, his parents die unexpectedly in a car crash. He takes some time off school to handle this because he's the only child. He's the executor of the will, and he's the sole beneficiary of the will. So he inherits the manor, he inherits the wealth from his parents, and that that's just in his lap now, right? So Damien and the future district attorney are doing their best to support him because obviously this is really hard to go through. They travel back down to alternate universe Los Angeles to go to the funeral, to spend a couple days with him. So one lighter note is this is the future DA's first time in alternate universe Los Angeles. So when Mark is busy, obviously he has a lot to do to handle this, especially at the speed of paperwork in alternate universe. Also, this is like a this is a little cultural aside. Also, Sky, no, he does not have a Mark cave. um, Cultural side, around 1910, at least in our local timeline, mourning as a practice is still customary. Of course, it's far more emphasized for women, right? And again, this is my cultural side because ended up doing a bunch of research, kind of going down a rabbit hole, and I thought it'd be interesting to share. So it's waning, right? Like people aren't doing it as much. Arguments for mourning as a practice is that it acts as like a messaging for those around you to be like, hey, I'm going through something hard right now. And then as a way to show honor and give customary like synonymous with like traditional. Anybody else have a better way to define that? Yeah, like what's expected, what's usually done. Yeah, so like at this point, people are still like dressing in mourning and like doing the mourning thing. That's what they're expected to do. But it's waning. It's becoming less popular. The second argument for is that is a way to honor and bring attention to the deceased rather than just like, forgetting them and moving on. You're doing something every day, like the way you're dressing, it like is a way to honor their memory. It's something you're doing for them. Arguments against it are like, for example, apparently it was like not uncommon for it to be like an ostentatious and distasteful implementation. I've got more details on the next slide. So that's why I didn't. I'm not defining it here. You'll see. You'll see. So like people who are like, oh, someone died, let me go buy some cool hats about it, right? And then the idea that it serves, that like staying in it, doing it might serve to breed grief. Like the idea is of processing grief, but maybe forcing someone to do this when that might not naturally correspond to how they're thinking and feeling, like makes it worse, makes the grieving process harder. And then also, again, it's far more emphasized. Oh no, oh no, Sky. I kind of love that headcanon though, because I have like some examples on the next page, and like for men, it's not like it was that crazy. So like, but anyway, okay. Again, it's far more emphasized for women, and so that's kind of a financial and logistical burden, especially on non-upper class women. So like one thing I read is like poorer folks might have like only a few outfits, and then so if they have to go into mourning, they can't afford to just buy a bunch of new outfits. They have to just like buy black dye and dye all of their clothes, and so then they're just mourning clothes forever. Anyway, so those are some arguments for and against mourning at this period. So for a parent, traditionally mourning lasted 1 year, and so again, like Kenna said, this is like primarily it's depicted the wearing all black. So the first 6 months are a full mourning, and I've put some quotes from the book that I was reading, and I have the sources. I have so many sources. I should just dump them in a big list for those who want to peruse. So this is what men would be wearing. The hat example is more for like a widower, but it was one of the better pictures I found, so I stuck it in here. Like the very wide crepe band there, that would signify a widower, someone who had just lost his wife. And then like the hats. So the gloves. The other thing is during this period of full mourning, you're not supposed to go have fun. So that's another piece of it. It's not just the clothes. You're also not supposed to then go to a party or whatever, right? I'm waiting to give you guys. I see people typing, so I'm giving you a chance to type. Yeah. So that's the argument against is that this is gonna make things actually worse for people. So the latter 6 months, it's like less intense, basically. So here's the other quote from that book that I was sourcing from. Well, I was sourcing from an article that had the book, so I didn't read it all myself or anything. Here's just some examples of like the fabrics. It's like duller fabrics or whatever. Yes. So again, as like a young man, when these trends are being eschewed, he really wouldn't like have to do, like he could have gotten away with not doing this. But honestly, I think like just who he is, I think traditions appeal to Mark. So and like this was a really unexpected loss for him, and kind of like I alluded to, he kind of has complicated feelings for his parents, right? So like it's kind of a making space for him to kind of deal with that. But again, like he's a young man, no one's going to expect him to like, and he's in college, right? Like he's trying to finish college. No one's going to expect him to like follow it to the letter. So I think he does do the more formal mourning. But I think, yeah, I think it's abridged. more like 3 to 6 months rather than like a full year. And again, I think he's going to still go places and do things, if only because he kind of has to, because he's in college and needs to finish college. So he does graduate on time. So then, as far as implications on the household, he lets some of his parents' staff go. His parents had like a lot, like kind of an excessive amount, because again, it's about appearances. It's about look how much money we have. Look at all the people we can keep on staff, right? So they had a lot of people. But Mark does need house staff. Um, please don't try to. Please don't just send him into the kitchen. Okay, he'll starve. Don't let him starve. But he lets go. He lets go like his father's personal valet and his mother's personal maid, because like it would be kind of weird to keep them, and like because they were, personal attendants of his parents. And also with the maid, there's no woman in the house, so they don't really need like that kind of maid, right? So and he keeps on the chef, obviously. He keeps on the groundskeeper, obviously. And with the groundskeeper, I mean, he'd been working there since before Mark's family had bought the place. Like it'd be weird to be like, all right, you leave now. And I mean, he does his job, right? It's kind of the same with the chef. He does his job. Why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So then the housekeeper, Mark planned to keep a housekeeper, but she kind of expressed an interest, like, wow, this would be a great time to retire, wouldn't it? And like, it's not like he's like, for the folks he does let go, it's not like he's like, get out of here, fuck you guys. He gives them like a severance, but like, he's not an asshole. Okay. I'm defending my beloved. As far as like butlers working in the house, turns out he knows just the man for this job. So he takes on Ben. And by this point, again, this is like the time they're graduating, or like a few months before their graduation. He's looking for placement, and of course, he's expecting to be like a junior member of staff in some larger household. So Mark being like, "Come work for me," is really weird, because like they're the same age. Ben has no experience. But like he knows Mark's family name. He's offering competitive compensation, and he won't. Oh, I'm not actually familiar with that, Kenna. Um, and Ben doesn't think this is important at the time, but he is going to be moving back to the city his family lives in. So later in life, much later in life, he will appreciate that. And there's just something about Mark. Um, he likes Mark, guys. He wants to take it, so he takes it. Yes, it's that emoji exactly. Honestly, that is actually the perfect emoji for it. So Ben accepts Mark's offer and is going to come work for Ben, or work for Mark. Okay, so this is probably a good time for a short break. Do we think? Do we need? I don't know what time it is. I don't know how long we've been here. Do we want a short bathroom break? I don't think it's hour 12. I think the sun would have come back up. Okay, let's do a bathroom break then. We're at a good stopping point. Okay. Okay, I'll be back. I'll be back. All right, is everyone back? Anyone we missing? Welcome back. Welcome back. Well, you lost your opportunity then, Miller. Is Mars accounted for? I don't want to leave them behind. They didn't say if they were leaving or not. Oh, well. That might indicate connection issues. Can you? All right, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I think we've got everyone. It looks like we've got everyone. Sky reconnected already. I think we've got everyone then. Okay. All right. Okay. So, we are now moving into the post-college years. So we're going to look at roughly, approximately, like 1912 to 1915 ish. So they graduate. Mark, Damien, and the future district attorney. Mark moves back home to Plier Manor and starts work. So I have it written somewhere here, but luckily for him, the city he grew up in is like a hotbed for his industry, right? So he's well positioned to live there and go to work. And meanwhile, Damien and the future district attorney are enrolling in law school, so they're not done. They're not done with school yet. Yeah. So we talked about some of the. Yeah, we basically talked about all of this already. Some of the reasons why film appeal to Mark, there is like the excitement, like it's new, it's growing, there's innovation, there's movement, it's exciting. There's like a glamorous lifestyle cropping up, right? Like the early film stars are living luxurious lives, which isn't necessarily the case of like, people who are working in theater, right? And then there's like a permanence to it. He likes the fact that like, so with theater, you go on, you give your performance and it's live and it's engaging and that's appealing, but then it's gone. Like you leave the stage and it's gone. And he likes, it appeals to him that there is a recording, that there is something that can be returned to. So yes, otherwise we talked about all this already. So there's just one little problem. Mark in oh, Kenna, he does. He so does. And he wants you to too. Um so there's just one little problem. Mark is not exactly a special standout name, but he is a special standout talent. It's not that he doesn't like his name. It's not really, it's not going to work for him, okay, as his professional name. And also, look, it's trite. Maybe it wasn't trite back here in 1912. Mr. Plier was his father's name, and people keep calling him that, and he doesn't like that. Now, Markiplier, wouldn't that just look great lit up on the marquee? So he rechristened the Iplier Manor to Markiplier Manor. It's a whole thing. He's very happy about it. He thinks it's super clever. It's cute, okay? It's really cute. Don't tell him I said that. There is lots of room for newcomers because like the industry is new, right? It's not like people aren't there. It's brand new positions that are happening. And Mark is really well positioned for it. Not only physically, like I said, like moving back, but he's pretty. They're looking for faces to put on big screens. He's pretty. He's got the right presence in terms of natural inclination, in terms of his upbringing, and in terms of the experience and practice he's gained in college. So it really does not take long before he lands a leading role and like becomes somebody, like becomes the kind of name people, he walks into an audition and they're like, oh, I'm interested in hearing from this guy. I've heard of him before, rather than, here's audition number 15 out of 30 for the day. So he's moving and shaking. He's going places. His star is on the rise, right? And also, having moved back home, he's back in Celine's circle, and they've both changed. And again, in Mark's case, that's matured, right? So they begin to court. And again, Mark is enjoying this glamorous, fun, exciting lifestyle. Side note, he's definitely, how we just talked about that thing that he was afraid of Damien and the DA doing? He definitely does that, like, hardcore, right? So they are now together. Like, this is when they get together and have their little the fun times, the good times. Yeah, Miller, it's fine when he does it. Meanwhile, Damien and the future district attorney are in law school. So Damien has, like, his plan has been to seek a public office in his home city. That's what he wants to do. He's not necessarily like, I want to be the mayor, but he wants to do something like that. The future district attorney doesn't like specifically aspire to be the district attorney. I just keep calling him that because I didn't want to use one or both of my self-inserts names every time. They plan to practice as a lawyer. They don't really want to return to their home city. They don't really want to move back across the country. They kind of assume they'll stay on the West Coast. Sky, that's really funny. You can't just say that. I genuinely kind of. So, I gotta disclose, I learned this for the presentation as well. The first year of law school is called 1L. So the summer after 1L, Damien goes back home. He's like taking the summer off. The district attorney feels like they can't take a summer off. Like they feel like they need to work harder than that. And they probably do, because again, they're, kind of having to fight to be taken seriously, because they're seen as a woman. Anyway, so they get an internship back near their undergraduate college. They're tapping some connections to, and again, in my head, this area is like a more accepting region of the country, a more progressive. So they go there. They do an internship. After several years spending this much time together, it's really hard to deny they're in love, right? It's really hard for even them to keep acting oblivious, right? Or keep being oblivious, right? But here's the thing, they can't just like shack up. Like that's not allowed, right? In this, so again, it's a more progressive, version of reality or whatever, but like not enough that they can just be together, right? And especially because there's still going to be a lot of religious voters who think everything should be done in the context of marriage. And Damien already plans to run for public office. He has to think about that, and neither are going to be like, cool, so we've been pretending we don't have any feelings for each other for this long. Let's go ahead and get married. Like that's not gonna happen. They're not gonna make that jump. There's not, like, with these things kind of in mind, there's not like a confession even. It's more like in the abstract, right? Because you spend this much time with people, you're young, you're talking about your future, you're yeah, see, exactly, they're not going to do that, Sky. like it comes up, like the concept of like, oh, like what do you want? Like are you interested in anyone? Do you see yourself getting married? Do you see yourself having kids? Like these conversations come up when you're young and existing. I don't know. I feel like I'm over explaining this, right? So it comes up and they talk about it in the abstract, and it's never like, oh, I'm interested in this other person. It's like, oh, I'd like someone like you. Okay. Like the undertone. Yeah, exactly. The undertones are like, I want to be with you. I want the kind of lifestyle that you want. Like you know what I mean? Like I want us to be happy together. Like that's what's the subtext. So they don't say it, but it comes around from no, they couldn't possibly, up to like no, this, my counterpart couldn't possibly be interested in me, to oh my god, the only, we just can't be together. Like that's the only thing keeping us apart now, is it's a bad idea. Because the other thing is, again, the DA is fighting this battle of, I need to be taken seriously as a young professional. If they were to get married, that makes them the wife, right? That then it would be like, why are you letting your wife out of the house or whatever, right? And they don't want that. They want to have a career. They don't want to they're in love with Damien, but they don't want to sacrifice all of that for him. They don't only want him. So the conclusion in Half Illusions is, if it can't be you, it's not to be anyone. They're not going to, the district attorney isn't going to go find someone else later on. Damien isn't going to find someone else. Yeah. So that's kind of where this is left. And again, they never say it explicitly, but it's kind of this, like, okay, we're not going to have this, but that doesn't mean we're going to go try to get it with someone else. For the summer after their second year, when Damien asks why the district attorney seems to be only applying to firms in California, what they tell him is they took a liking to the city when they visited it, when they were shown around there. That doesn't really seem like the full explanation. That doesn't really seem to explain why they are suddenly honing in on that city, on that region of the country. Nonetheless, they both secure a position. Damien's at the courthouse, and the district attorney is at another private firm in another area of the city. So they're not super close, but they meet in the middle for coffee on Saturdays. And in the middle, away from each of the little neighborhoods where they're becoming known, no one really knows them. They're, again, like, Damien's family name is known, but like you don't really give that at the coffee shop, right? So, and it's not like his face is recognizable. So they like have some anonymity, right? They can meet here in the middle. They can just kind of be together, right? And nobody calls them out on it. So this is also a picture from my real life. I didn't take this picture, but this is a coffee shop that was near and dear to my heart in my youth. So that's how they spend the summer. That's what they do after their second year. Meanwhile, over this period, the war is finally resolving. It's been going on for like 10 years, and it is formally brought to a close in 1915. So I guess that'd be 11 years. William remains in the military. Again, he still believes in what he's doing. He believes in his country, but also he's been in combat. He's had people die, right? So there is a boyish idealism that is gone from him now. He has now been through, not that he was totally shielded from the real world before, right? But that changes a person. It does. So he's probably not yet colonel. He's probably lieutenant colonel at this point, at the end of the war. So in their final year of law school, the future district attorney receives a job offer from that firm they just interned with. Damien is now applying for jobs in the local government. Again, his name's not out there. He can't run for an elected office right away, so he's looking for smaller term supporting positions so he can network, etc. So they graduate in 1915. They both move back to alternate universe Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Mark and Celine, Mark really wants to be married. Okay, he is enamored with that idea, right? He is a romantic. Okay, he wants that. Okay, he wants the I do. He wants the rings. He wants the forever. He wants to see her walking down the aisle, right? Celine doesn't feel as strongly about marriage as an institution, but like they're in love at this point, right? Like Celine is like, okay, you like I am fine with doing this, if you want to do this, right? So Mark proposes, she accepts, and they marry in the fall. And of course, Damien and William are groomsmen. Um, So another note about my thank you. I was pausing. I was hoping you guys would notice. I love this is from the animatic that just destroyed. This animatic is so good. Yeah, they kiss. They're married now. So a little aside about my self inserts. A key difference between the timeline where they're doomed and the timeline where they're not is that Auden and Mark have stayed close in touch. So like they are also in the wedding party. They write frequently, they meet up regularly if they're like at the same public event, which is more common as Auden and Damien become like more prevalent in the local political scene. Like they'll sit together. But meanwhile, Levia and Mark, in the timeline where they're not doomed, they drift apart significantly. Like they're in touch, they still write, but like not as often. And like really, they don't end up in the same places as much. Yes, they don't exist at the same time. These are both like these are counterparts. So it's either one or the other. So like Levia is invited to the wedding, but like by then they're not that close. They're not like in the wedding party. They're kind of on the fringes. Also Celine really doesn't like them, but that's that's deep lore. So really Levia and Mark are kind of only connected via Damien, where it's like we are both Damien's friends. We and like like think back, I don't know how old all of you are, but like think back to like your high school friends. Like or even younger than that, like if you have elementary school friends who like you'd like remember them fondly. If you like met in the grocery store, you'd be like, oh, like how are you doing, and you genuinely mean it, but you're not gonna like, oh, let's go have a sleepover again like when we were 10. Like that's kind of where Levia and Mark are. Like they don't dislike each other. I'm belaboring this. We're moving on. So I am also sorry to say, um this is where the fun parts of the presentation are going to come to an end, and we are going to steadily descend because I might remind you this is a presentation about the timeline of Who Killed Markiplier. So that's where we're going. I don't mean to distract you all with the will they, won't they in college and the weddings and they're all doomed, okay? They're all doomed in this timeline. So they're all doomed. When I'm talking about my district attorney, I'm really talking about Auden, the one who was doomed. So, well, it's not all bad. Damien and the future district attorney are still like doing fine. They're working hard. Here is a picture. This is as it's labeled San Francisco City Hall, because again, we talked before. This is like the City Hall courthouse. This is the big city government building where Damien and the district attorney are both going to work, because I like the idea of them walking to work together. So Damien really like, it's not just personal bias. Like Damien believes in the district attorney, like as a professional, like what they can do. So he's a really vocal reference for them. Of course, he moves up the ladder much faster than them, because of all of the circumstances we previously discussed. They do end up purchasing homes. Like I said, they walk to work together. So Mark and Celine, this is my art. I drew this. We're at the point in the timeline where I started getting too specific to be able to find good fan art, so I had to pull from my animatic. So a lot of these are pulled from my own animatic. All the ones that are in this style. Anyway, so like Mark is like a capital S star now, right? He's got the glitzy, glamorous lifestyle. He's got the parties, the premieres, and he's loving all of it. Celine's kind of getting sick of it. Um, she's like, cool, we are getting interrupted yet again on our way to a date or whatever. Like, great, I have to smile now. So it's not like they're immediately out of love or whatever, but that honeymoon period is ending, right? They are discovering differences they hadn't encountered before or had ignored because, when you're young and newly in love, you're going to overlook a lot of stuff, right? And like Celine is finding this tension, right? So the problem continues that Mark is addressing this like, okay, what what do wives want? What should husbands do? Not what does Celine want? Right? So and again, like I alluded to, like this is kind of the way he's been raised, right? Like his inclination is to play the role of husband, right? So it's like this disconnect is forming, this feeling of distance, because he's like putting himself into a role rather than just being himself, right? Because this is a new role he's put on himself. Before they were just a young couple, now he's a husband, right? So now he's kind of feeling like he has to do these certain things, and Celine is like, what is going on with you? Kenna, I cannot stress this enough. 5 years of my life, the last 5 years of my life have been exclusively dedicated to this, okay? Anyway, so and like also we've talked about the aspect where Mark is traveling for work. Like when he's in these larger scale productions, depending on where they're filming, if they're filming something on site, like he might have to like travel like down to a desert or up to a forest or something, right? Of course, lots of things are on sets, but as he's this big A-list star, sometimes he's away for months at a time. And like in and of itself, that's not what bothers Celine. It's again like what is this weird thing going on with you? Like why? Like could you maybe listen to the things I'm actually saying to you? And then also like the way she's expected to conduct herself. Like there are these expectations of her as a wife, as like a woman in the spotlight, right? Like there are these things, right? So that's the problem, right? Not in and of itself that Mark is working a lot, but that there are these other problems that are like some of them related to what he's doing. There's problems, right? There's problems in their marriage. Around this same time, Celine begins to actually engage with that lifelong pull towards witchcraft, or whatever you want to call it. So it's also the case that she doesn't like the house. She never has. And like around this point in like their early marriage where they're living together, she's kind of sensing that like being there seems to be affecting Mark, but she attributes that to his parents' deaths, really. Because that's where he grew up with his parents. So like she kind of assumes that's like part of the problem and like maybe bothering him. And it's too big for them anyway. Yeah, see, Miller, you get distracted with all the yippee yay, and then you're like, oh right, they're doomed. Yeah. So again, it's too big for them. There are multiple reasons why she's like, we should move. Like, we should not live here. Like, I'm studying the occult now. Seems like something's weird here that I was right about my whole life when I've always thought this. And there are these other, like, we should move. We should get our own house. It should not be this house. Mark does not believe in any of that and doesn't respect it either, right? Like, so again, Mark is not a mature man, right? When a child encounters something they don't understand, they're like, that's bad. I don't like it. I don't believe you, right? When a mature adult encounters something they don't understand, they're supposed to I don't know, try to, right? And when it comes to like someone's spiritual beliefs, if someone has a spiritual belief and you're like, I don't think so, you don't say that to them, assuming they're, not being an asshole to you. You're like, oh, that's nice. Like, I'm glad that works for you. I'm glad you get something out of that, right? He doesn't really he doesn't do that, right? He doesn't cultivate that respect. He's like, he's like, I think you're wasting your time. And also, if people find out you're doing this, that's going to look bad on me, which he's probably right about, right? And of course, they're not going to move. This is Markiplier Manor, okay? This is his house. It's his. He's not going to move. Can't move. Not happening. So this is obviously a big point of tension in their relationship. Again, this is the communication issues. This is he is not actually fucking listening to her. Like, she is saying words the words are entering his ears, but the meaning doesn't seem to be sticking to his brain. So here's another cultural diversion. We're going to talk about, well, here, hold on. I'm going to sit here in case anyone has comments. I don't see anyone typing. But then we're going to pivot, so I'm going to pause patiently and take a sip of my drink. Okay. Next, another like cultural / historical interlude. In our local reality, talking about gambling, drugs, and alcohol, one push for those things being illegal was like morals driven, and primarily that's like Christians saying like, we as a society shouldn't allow this, it's immoral. And like we already talked about, support for a major war in general like requires major propaganda, and that usually comes with like a banding together of moral attitudes. So even if it's like it's not like the war propaganda necessarily would be like, don't drink alcohol, but like it's not really a time culturally where people are pushing boundaries like that. People are instead banding together on like the existing foundation or whatever. So I have some examples from I think this is all World War II. So like the vibe, right, of like, let's come together and all do our part, and what it's just not a time where you're like, let's be fringe. Did my screen freeze? No, it did not. Okay, we're good. And here's a couple more that were specifically not from war, but around prohibition. So again, the idea is like, don't let alcohol be legal. It's going to corrupt our children, or whatever, right? So like these things, gambling, drugs, and alcohol, had this moral push against them, which I guess is still true today. But the other piece is economics. So it was the Great Depression that fostered support for legalizing gambling and re-legalizing alcohol as economic stimulus. Like, people will spend money on this. Please, for the love of God, we need some money in the economy. We need to legalize this, right? Fuck the morals. We need money. But post World Wars I and II, there were economic booms. So if we're saying this big war just ended, it was Damien that did the keg stand, which we love for him. So at this time where we are in the timeline, it is likely like economically good. Like, there's not that driver to say, oh, how can we get people to spend more money? So in conclusion, like both of these major factors that affected this aren't in play right now. Gambling, alcohol, and recreational drugs would be still illegal at this time. So that being said, post-war, William is still in the military, but he's stationed stateside. There's less to do. There's like lower tensions in some regard, but again, everyone just got back from like active combat right? So like people are looking for distractions. It's not like everyone is, you know, in the prime of their lives. So there is illegal gambling there on the military base, and William participates heavily and accrues significant debt. Oh, really? They did that? But yeah, like it's like that kind of thing, right? This is what people turn to in these times. And again, they got to do something to fill their time. Yeah, yeah. You see where we're going? So and then eventually he owes it back. So here's the thing: Mark wants to offer to help, but William does not want a handout. And Mark knows William would not want a handout. What he decides to do is like build into his offer a method for William to pay him back. So it's not let me pay off your debt. It's say, why don't you come work for me? The idea is to avoid insulting him or then just like leaving this on the table. Like I did this for you and I know realistically you're not going to have something similar that you can do to pay me back. So this is another instance where he's just assuming, right? He's not like, hey, William, would you be comfortable with blah, blah, blah? Or, how about we work out something where blah, blah, blah. He's like, I know what to do. So this comes across poorly. Shocker. It comes across like Mark is the one who wants this stipulation in there. Like William cannot read his mind and know that he's adding this because he's like playing 4D chess with himself over here, right? And especially because of Mark's lifestyle. Like Mark has always been well off, but now he's living this glamorous lifestyle, right? So like there is a new discrepancy between them, the way they're living their lives, but like so it comes across really badly. But also William has no other choice. Also at this point in my presentation, I felt sad about the number of pictures that I was not having. So I also did this in pictures. So this is what we just talked about, but a second time. And again, like the people he owed, I think, like were maybe like this isn't like a or we'll come break your legs situation, right? It's like a or we'll kick you out of the we'll get you kicked out of the military and ruin you type situation, right? So the people he owed are probably like other officers, like whatever, right? So he owes this money back. He does not have this money. Mark is dumb. He wants to help. He does not know how to talk to his friends in a normal way, apparently. So William is not getting a good impression for him. But he does take the money because he has to, and then he pays off his debt. So they're squared away, but now we have problems here. So at this point, he's accepted this offer. He moves into Markiplier Manor. Working for Mark is grating largely because Mark did not need another member of his staff. This wasn't like he was looking for someone to hire. He had an open position. He was like, oh yeah, I can find something for you to do. So like he's making shit up that he's like, sure, go do this. And so like you can tell when that's the case, and it comes across like he's just ordering him around. And then meanwhile, he's still a movie star, so he's like, okay, bye, William. I made you do random bullshit all afternoon. I'm going to go off to this fun party. I will say, like, this picture is a little late because we have talked about, some what's the word? Like rumblings of thunder in their relationship, right? So the picture is a little late, but like approximately this is still where we are on the timeline. Mark and Celine are still, trying to make it work. They're still spending time together. Yeah. But meanwhile, resentment is beginning to grow between William and Mark. Oh, and yes, so like William is not invited. It's not like he can go to the same events Mark's going to. So yeah, not a great situation. Shitty. and it only gets worse from here. Those are just those are the seeds, and those seeds, sprout. So William and Mark have their friendship is destroyed, right? So William ends up working there for 2 years, something like that. And again, Mark is giving them giving him a good salary or whatever, but it's not because again the idea here was he will be insulted by a handout, so I can't just get so it's a reasonable salary. It's within an order of magnitude of the salary he's getting from the military, right? So within a couple years, he can pay his debt off. But over this time, they are fighting. Whereas before, that's what it feels like, kind of. Before, growing up together, they would fight, but then they'd make up. And again, it wouldn't be oh, I'm so sorry. It would be you come down on the couch, you plop down next to him, and you don't act mad anymore. That's the kind of making up they did. But they're not doing that anymore. And they're not hanging out, because why would William want to hang out with Mark when he's acting like an asshole? Damien, not for the last time, is the middleman here. And he talks to both of them. He understands what Mark is trying to do, but what he can't make Mark understand is that it did not work. And Mark's not stupid. It's he knows things are going south, but the other part Damien can't talk him into is that he could fix it, that he could do something about it now. And then on the other hand, talking to William, being no, Mark is literally not trying to be an asshole. He just is an asshole, I guess. But William by this time is already writing Mark off, being no, that's not, I'm not going to renegotiate with him. He's an asshole, can't be reasoned with. But at the same time, they used to be best friends. So kind of the only thing William can conclude here is Mark's stardom has changed him. That's where this is coming from. That's the difference. Damien doesn't really agree. Hey, don't quote me on that. Hey! Out of context. Completely out of context. So Damien doesn't, at the risk of invalidating me saying that's out of context, Damien doesn't agree. It's not like Mark was a diplomat before, right? He's just not good at this, okay? This is not a skill set he has. This is not a skill set he has cultivated. Damien's no, please stop. But it doesn't work, right? They are not friends anymore. William and Mark do not like each other anymore. This ends where William is I'm getting out of this fucking house. Here is the fucking money. I'm leaving. Goodbye. And this is confusing and upsetting to Mark, who high key does not he doesn't understand what happened, because his emotional intelligence is 0, as we discussed during Kenna's presentation. But after months of not being on good terms, it's not he's gonna fight to keep he's fine, get out then if that's what you want. So Damien is okay, they are now not living under the same roof. Maybe this with space, maybe they will get their heads out of their asses and things will be fine again. He's wrong about this, because William at least is no. Like I said earlier, he's decided Mark is an asshole and cannot be reasoned with, and he's no longer interested in being in communication with him. So William, and again, now he is out of debt. He's sworn off the gambling. He buys a house in the city, but on the outskirts of the city. So this situation, this devolving, its effect, Kenna, that probably would have worked. That's kind of how they are. That kind of probably would have worked. Or they would have killed each other. One or the other. The effect here, yeah, I would say no, literally. We're getting to that. The effect on Celine and Mark's relationship, watching this, is the same fucking thing she's been struggling with Mark. He's just doing it again with another person. She's like, what the fuck is wrong with him? And like we talked about, Damien talking to Mark and being like, no, you're being an asshole, like, stop doing this. Celine is also like, no, you're being an asshole, stop doing this. And he's like, no, like, I know what I'm doing, shut up. He doesn't literally say that to her. He's classier than that. But he's not interested in taking her input. And also, obviously, this brings Celine and William under the same roof. They have a chance to connect or reconnect, because of course they've known each other their whole lives almost too. But they're able to connect, they're able to bond, they can feel a spark between them. That spark that Celine is losing has lost with Mark, like as that honeymoon period has ended, she's, you know, feeling that and again, like the idea of that, like electricity again, the thing people feel early in a relationship. And at the start of this period, like William wouldn't do that to Mark. He's not gonna make a move on Celine, who is married. Towards the end, I don't know, maybe he would have, but he didn't. After he moves out, though, they still they write often. They are talking a lot via letters directly, as opposed to, you know, maybe he would have written to Mark and, you know, sent his regards to Celine before. Like now he's just writing, to Celine. Again, it's still not all bad yet. At some point here, like over this same period, Damien successfully secures the mayor's office. His campaign has significant financial support from Mark. And again, this here, it's not a big deal because Mark knows Damien is not weird about money, so he's not gonna. So he's like, "Here's some money," and it's fine. Same thing with the district attorney. Once Damien takes the mayor's office, yeah, again, everyone loves Damien, and he's like, "Hey, this would be a great district attorney," and everyone's like, "Damn, I bet they'd be a great district attorney." Genuinely, Kenna, if they just talked, this wouldn't have happened. The district attorney's campaign also receives significant financial support from Mark. And they celebrate, right? So, like, these are some of the last days that everyone's getting together. They're like, wow, this is so good. Congratulations. Let's celebrate together. There is also a new conflict abroad. You guys are... I'm trying not to diverge because no, really, it's so sad. You guys are... Yeah. So around this time also, there is a new conflict abroad, like a smaller conflict, but like people, countries, powers who were involved in the war. And of course, like the global, like everyone is like, shit, dude, like we don't want another 11-year world war. Like you people need to get your shit together. So like troops are deployed to basically go over there and be like, hey, stop. Like we are here. We have aimed a gun at you. Like you cannot do this. So that's the idea of what's going on. So like William's deployed again for this. Yes. So again, kind of talking about where Celine is going with this. Like at first, Celine is viewing this as like a problem in their marriage, like a thing they need to work out. Like at first, like she's in love with Mark. She wants to make this work. But like Mark is not working on this with her. So obviously, as these years go by, it seems much less fixable. You know, like what else is she going to conclude? But okay, he won't work on this. This must just be like a him problem. Like this must be he's just not going to change. And obviously William agrees with this. And so now when they're talking more, this is a conclusion he's encouraging her to write him off. Miller, there are other things going on, okay? The timeline where they're not doomed, he does learn. He does learn. He's being deprived of the tools to do so right now. It's also the case, though, that, like, like, because I think we can agree having fucking zero emotional intelligence and totally failing to communicate with the people you like, that is a problem. That is a you problem that you need to work on. If you are a person in that situation, there's work that you need to be doing. I know, but he can learn, okay? Might I remind you? We'll get to it. We'll get to that. But it's also the case that, like, Mark is just not what Celine wants in a life partner, right? Like the lifestyle, the way he wants to receive affection, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they just don't line up. And being young and in love, that wasn't really a consideration. But then, of course, trying to be married, trying to spend years together, that's like in very sharp contrast, right? So, like, you can talk about the fact that Mark has shit he needs to work on, the fact that Mark really needs therapy. But you can also talk about, like, it's not a moral failing to need a lot of, like, attention and warm affection, right? But, like, that is something he needs that Celine isn't, like, that's not really what Mark needs. Celine can't give, right? And like so this does to a certain extent go both ways, right? Like, they are not, even in ideal conditions, they are not a good fit for each other. And on top of that, they are not in ideal conditions. Mark is being subject to forces outside of his control. Okay, so that's my. I'm sorry, guys. I have to defend him. He's the love of my life, and I genuinely believe in him. That is how I would put that. Okay, but exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes. That is the problem. He is being actively disincentivized from working on himself. But we're not talking about that yet. So even under ideal conditions, they would not have been a good fit. However, there is also a house demon. So it's worse. Yes, everyone forgets about that. It's not all his fault, okay? So Celine also writes Mark off. Thank you, Mars. So they have both decided, fuck this guy. I guess he's an asshole. I guess he will always be an asshole. I am no longer interested in, being affiliated with him. So, meanwhile, William has fallen in love with Celine through her letters. He gets leave while Mark is away filming and visits her, and this is the point at which Celine acts on her attraction, right? She makes the first official move. She kisses him. She invites him to stay the night. So William doesn't, stay abroad for that long. That is the point where he's promoted to colonel officially. Then back home, he spends as much time as he can with Celine. When Mark's away, it's easy. When Mark's home, they find ways. And William's the one to begin to suggest, okay, like, let's get away from this asshole. Let's go see the world. Let's go where you want to go. Like, because that's another thing that, Celine wants adventure. She wants to go places. Mark is not taking her places. Yes, so that's that. So then this brings us all the way up to, like, 1923. And not to spoilers or anything, but my Who Killed Mark Blair takes place in 1924. So we are honing in here. Once Celine writes Mark off, she stops trying to improve their marriage, right? Because why? like that's the thing, right? This is what finally alerts Mark when Celine stops trying. He's like, oh shit, like, oh fuck, like we have marital problems. And this is super upsetting to him because, again, like, he really wanted to be married. He really wanted that forever. It's not that he's not trying, it's that he isn't doing it right, right? So again, he's like, shit, like, now he's like high key panicking and, like, trying to, yeah, he's trying wrong, genuinely. So he's still like, okay. So Celine has complained that I'm not here enough, and that's not what she meant. But he's like, okay, I guess I have to take fewer roles. um, I guess I have to turn down, these opportunities. That's what she wants, right? Um, if only he knew words. If only he knew how to talk to people. Um, so this is a significant downward spiral. So he's physically present more, but he's not fucking aware of like what's going. He's still like not giving her what she needs. He's not even articulating what he needs because he doesn't fucking know what he needs. He doesn't know how to articulate what he needs that Celine isn't giving him. But again, even if he did, she's done with him already. Um, yeah, So, and also at this point, Celine does not want Mark home more. Like that might have been nice before, but now she wants to go run around with William, and him being home doing nothing is making that harder. So also, Mark's career is beginning to stall. Like whereas he's had been still a huge name, um, quote unquote hot, like still rising. And he blames Celine for this because he did this for Celine, this thing that she didn't fucking ask him to do. And so then resentment starts to grow between them. Um, and Mark's career has suffered not only because he's turning down these opportunities, he's limiting himself, but also like this is really upsetting to him. I'm gonna repeat. And so like he's under this strain when he does show up to work, he's like he's like not sleeping as well, he's not doing as good of a job, right? So later that year in like the late summer, Mark receives an offer he really wants, but it would take him away from home. Yeah, Astral, that is exactly that is what I think he means when he says that. um so he really wants this role, so he talks to Celine about it. And of course, she's very dismissive. Again, she has written him off. And again, this is kind of on her, right? This is not how she should have gone about this. Um, so she's very much like, I have never asked you to turn down anything, which is true. And so Mark kind of reluctantly takes the role because he's like, I don't know what else to do. Like this is not, whatever I'm trying is not fucking working. I want this role. She told me to take it. I guess I'm going to take it. I guess I'm going to go. But then that gives Celine and William the chance to run away together. So this is when they go. So one thing also, they've been cavorting around together. Like most of Mark's staff know, but they knew damn well Ben would tell Mark. So they did successfully keep things from Ben. But this is when like she's packing her things and leaving. Ben is like, what the fuck? Ben is like, what the fuck? Can you not? He doesn't say what the fuck, obviously, but like, can you please like stay and at least tell Mark you're like, what are you doing? Like, how could you do this? But meanwhile, Celine and William are convinced this is the best path forward because again, they're like, he's an unreasonable asshole. He's gonna make this harder for us if we stay and try to talk to him. Like this is not gonna. This is the best way for us to just make a clean break and run away. So like this is something they had decided. It's like, yeah, anyway. So then Mark comes back and finds that they've left. He's devastated. Assumes that all of his staff knew. Ben knew, but like only recently. Kicks them all out. But of course, what the hell was Ben supposed to do? Call him on the phone and tell him his wife just ran away? Like that wasn't gonna be good. So he didn't. He just waited till Mark got back. So here's another key difference in the timeline. Levia's Ben is like, no, I'm not. I'm not leaving. I was trying my best. You cannot kick me out. You can't kick everyone out. Like you need someone here. I'm not leaving. In Auden's timeline, Ben does leave. He's like, I feel so guilty. You're telling me to leave. I guess I'm gonna leave. So staff are kicked out. Mark has a complete breakdown. He like physically breaks shit. We see that in Who Killed Markiplier. We see that with the photos and such. Like he's physically throwing shit, breaking shit, kind of tearing apart the house, breaking things contractually. Because again, he just got back from filming. There are other pieces to a movie. You don't just finish filming and then drop off the face of the earth, except that's what he's doing. So like there were like promotional things he was supposed to do that he's not leaving his house and not doing them. He's not answering phone calls. He's not answering the angry people knocking on his door like, what the fuck are you doing? He's drinking heavily. He's not sleeping well. It is bad for him. It is really, really bad for him. He has locked himself alone in this house and letting the rest of his life go to shit. Hey, I wonder who made this really good art that I hope it's okay that I used because I didn't ask. I put it on its own slide because I thought it was really good. So Damien tries. He does try, right? And I think, obviously, guys, if you didn't know, this is Astral's art. It's good. You should go like, comment, and subscribe. So I do think like one of the earlier, so Damien hears about this and Damien tries to come. And I think one of the first times he comes, they do have a moment like this where Mark is like, holy shit, like my life is spiraling out of control. What is going on? And Damien's like, shit, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. How can I support you? But yeah, and like I said, Damien is also, we've talked about this in this server before, right? Damien also felt extremely betrayed by what happened because this was kept from him too. He cares about Mark. He doesn't understand how they could do that to Mark. But like Mark doesn't believe that Damien had no idea. Like, okay, maybe William didn't tell him, but how would Celine have not told him? They are twins. They have been extremely close their entire lives. There is no way that Damien didn't know, therefore he is lying to me, and it doesn't matter whether or not Damien knew because Damien will be on their side for those same reasons. Like, there's no way Damien is going to side with me over Celine because they're so close. He doesn't trust Damien anymore. Yes, that's exactly it. He doesn't trust Damien anymore, so he may have let him in the first time, but he becomes a raving fucking asshole towards him because he doesn't trust him. And I don't think I wrote this here, but he's getting paranoid at this point too. He's like, I have opened up to Damien. I have cried in front of Damien. He probably went and told that to to William and Celine, and they are probably judging me for the fact that I am a fucking wreck over this, right? So he's getting super paranoid and treating Damien like absolute garbage. And of course, Damien's really concerned about this, but he's not going to go get treated like garbage, right? He's not just going to show up and let Mark do this. So he's like, fine. If this is the way, I tried, I did not get very far. I have to give up on you. And this is something that concerns him deeply, but again, he has enough self-respect to not let Mark treat him like that. So we are now going into the events immediately preceding Who Killed Markiplier. If you are, I didn't choose any particularly explicit fan art. I'm not describing in loving detail or anything, but we are going to be talking about the themes that play into the immediate, the events immediately prior to Who Killed Markiplier, including but not limited to self-harm, manipulation, murder, suicide. I should say the events immediately preceding and during. So if you would like to disconnect, if you would like to not participate in this part, there are no hard feelings. This is my content warning. I will pause for anyone who would like to say goodbye. Feel free to come back in I don't know, probably half an hour for the Q&A. Okay. Have good food. I'll put a I'll put like a note when we I'll put like a note in the other PowerPoint when we switch to the Q&A when we're done, because this is like we're getting the other thing is like this becomes less I mean, okay, it's pretty headcanon heavy because the events of Who Killed Markiplier itself are complete nonsense. But like we're getting tighter with canon, so like you can you won't be totally lost if you come back. Okay, bye. Have good dinner or whatever time it is there. Okay. All right. So Mark is left alone. Okay. He has other friends. Like obviously like his work colleagues and friends. But like Damien was his best friend. So there are other people who try to reach out, but much like Damien was shoved out, it's not like he lets them in. Because while Damien was like too close to trust, these people were not close enough to trust, right? Like he's not just going to talk with a work colleague about what he's going through. Um, he's completely destroyed his support system, and so at this point, he's still like sometimes like oh, I can get Celine back. Like she's going to leave him. She'll see the error of her ways, but like most nights he understands that he's been left, right? He wouldn't be taking it this badly if he were able to um, um, delude himself in that way. Um, so again, he's refusing to leave the house, so he does not follow through with the rest of his contractual obligations for the film. And again, his career was already struggling. This is like not he can't do this, and he also knows that if they're not already speculating about where the hell he went, because the film's not out yet, and he's been kind of like he's no longer one of the top 5 names on people's lips anyway, right? But like people are gonna notice that he just dropped off the face of the earth, um, if they haven't already, and so that's like weighing on him. That's like in the back of his mind that he has not only blown up his support system, but just blown up his career, like maybe for good, like, like yeah, um, and like I said, Celine and William left in like the late summer, so the days are getting shorter. Mark is experiencing self-hatred. So again, like I've alluded, like it's not like he's the most stable person to begin with. So this kind of really sets him off. He's experiencing like self-hatred. He begins self-harming. Um, this makes things worse because not only has he ruined his marriage and his career, but now he's ruining his body. But again, he like can't really stop either. So this is pretty much his lowest point. He feels like he has nothing. Um, except he's not really alone. Um, I haven't said it explicitly, but I've alluded in chat. The entity has been preying on him this whole time. Part of the reason he has gotten worse and been so oblivious and whatever is because it is influencing him. It is disincentivized. It has been the whole time disincentivizing him from, doing things that would weaken its connection with him, right? So the entity in my head canon, like as a concept, as a thing, it has kind of grown with the house. I don't bother to know where exactly it came from, but it definitely feeds on the energy of the people physically in the house. So initially it's like a spiritual smudge, right? So without getting too, I don't know, metaphysical about it, like we have the physical world where you have like, you reach out, you touch your desk, physical matter, we know about it. Then we have like the spiritual level, right? So like whatever the equivalent of material is on the spiritual level, it's like a little smudge. But as it grows, it becomes more like a consciousness. It has a will. And at first, it's not able to exert much influence, but as it grows, it can on people and items in the house. It is malevolent, it is sadistic, it is self-interested, and as it grows, it comes to understand that it is confined to the house and that this is not optimal, right? For a being that wants power, um, to get power, it's got to get out of the house. It wants freedom. Um, so some of the things that affect its ability to influence a person is the entity's power itself, which, as we've talked about, is kind of proportional to time, and then also the amount of time the target person has spent in the house. And then I think this is pretty common across disciplines, but like there are people who are spiritually weaker and there are people who are spiritually more resilient, right? Okay, so the spiritually weaker would include children, those suffering emotional distress, and like people who just don't have an aptitude for it or whatever. And so Mark is the only person who has spent his whole life in the house. He was born in like a hospital, but then like brought home to the manor. His parents had moved in as adults, and then he just happens to be like spiritually weak to the type of thing the entity is. So he just drew the short straw. Um, So even when Mark was a child, the entity was mature enough to understand Mark could be its opportunity because of the amount of influence it could have over him. So it's not like it didn't have like a specific goal for the young Mark to go do, but it was like, I am going to get stronger and more and gain more influence over this person as he grows up. That is a huge opportunity that I need to, cultivate. So that Mark, the actor, has lifelong nightmares like real Mark, which it's not like it did that on purpose, but that's kind of a side effect of having an evil entity fucking about in your head. And then it does intentionally instill that skepticism towards the spiritual as an intentional defense because, again, the other kids are running in and out of the house too. Like, it can tell that Celine can kind of tell it's there, and it's like, shit, like, I don't want Mark to get suspicious and do anything that would bail him out, right? So that's what it does begin to instill from a young age, a skepticism that anything like that even could be happening so that Mark never becomes careful of it. So then when Mark was in college, it had a problem to deal with. Like, it doesn't like the fact that Mark's out of the house at all. But as graduation approaches, like, Mark is going to move out. And that is a big problem because it has spent all these years like kind of biding its time, waiting for an opportunity to present itself to use Mark to, get its freedom, to gain its power. But by that point, Mark's parents had also lived in the house for a long time. So it had, and again, they were there as adults, so it doesn't have as much power over them as it does him, but it still has influence. So, and the manor staff even too, right? So the manor staff in charge of the car maintenance, it encourages them, that can wait another week. Like, you don't really need to check that. And Mark's parents, maybe they're going out, maybe Mark's father is having a, glass of something before they go out for an evening event, and maybe he should have another one before he goes. And maybe it's going to be a great night. Maybe they should get really pumped up and really excited, and then they get in the car and one night they are a little too reckless or a little too drunk, or the car, didn't have, the right parts lubricated that it should have, or whatever it was. They died. There was the fatal car accident. So Mark inherited the manor. There's no reason he should leave. Especially back then, it was super common for properties to stay in families for generations. There was no reason he should leave, and he did not leave. So then the question becomes, okay, what do I need to do with Mark? It's not strong enough to just kick him out of his body, to just steal his body. Eventually it would become strong enough, so that could be a goal. That could be the path, is just to get stronger until it can do that. Another option would be to influence Mark into doing something else that leads to an available body for it. So it doesn't really have a concrete plan. It wants freedom. It wants freedom as soon as possible. The backup plan is just wait. But when Celine re-enters the picture, it knows Mark really well, and it knows how badly Mark wants to be loved. And so that's a fantastic way to hurt and manipulate him, is having this person that he loves in his life, right? So it sowed those seeds of division. And again, like we talked about, they were never going to stay together forever, right? They just aren't, like, it was a fling, right? Like, they were in love, they wanted to have some fun. They are not life partners. They just aren't. But again, it's going to discourage Mark from working on his worst qualities because, oh shit, hang on, something bad is happening on my screen. Hold on. Stand by. Okay, we're just gonna keep going and ignore that. Oh shit. Yeah, we're just gonna have to keep going. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we're good. I think my second screen might die. We'll find out. Okay. So, as we were saying, it knows it wants to create this division. It knows it wants to use Celine to hurt Mark. So it is discouraging Mark from working on those worst qualities that he could at least, build an amicable whatever, right? It's gonna, and also it's not like it has no influence over Celine. It just has very little. So like it can do things like encourage her temper. Just a more, just a weaker influence, a weaker push, right? And then again, definitely encouraging the idea that he should not listen to her whatsoever on the possibility of moving out. Then when William entered the picture, this was a fantastic opportunity. So it has already sowed, and again, I shouldn't say sowed because they were never perfect for each other. But when William enters the picture, it is an even better opportunity. They already have this rocky marriage. Like Celine already has this reason to be looking elsewhere. It can push William towards Celine because William has spent a hell of a lot of time in the house. It has more influence over William than Celine. It can use William to influence Celine. So again, like things like we talked about, like them kind of agreeing Mark is an asshole and they should write him off. The fact that William agrees with Celine, who was kind of thinking that, like, that's just how being a social being works. If your friends are like, yeah, I think you're right, you're more likely to think that than if they're like, I think you're wrong. Celine is not easily influenced in general, like by people, by the entity, by anything. But again, for what it's worth, this is going on. It also like helped keep things from the house staff if they were a little too loud, giggling in the corner or whatever. Like it can use its influence to help them keep the affair a secret. And then it can encourage the running off and leaving suddenly versus the, hey, maybe we should actually talk to Mark. Maybe we should actually do this, in a more traditional way. So these are the things that are going on. With Mark alone, then, completely at its mercy, it is encouraging this spiral of despair. It is reminding him of everything he's done wrong. It is reminding him that William and Celine are off out there together doing things that he might not wish to picture and that he is being reminded of now. Reinforcing his decision, if he's entertaining the possibility of maybe I should reach out to someone, how could you trust that? Not only how could you trust that Damien wouldn't report back to William and Celine, How could you trust that anyone you know, like any industry colleagues, wouldn't sell your story for a profit? And then like again, like the physical. Ken, I think it was you that said something about self-care earlier. It's exactly that. Don't open the windows. Don't let sunlight in. Why bother showering? Do you really have the energy to eat? um, so there's that. Mark does not want revenge at this point. Mark wants to die. The entity is optimistic that it can still, you know, change this. The entity is feeling great about this situation. And besides, some serious damage to Mark's body would make it not just emotionally, but physically painful to be alive. That will help motivate Mark to do whatever it wants him to do. Mark commits suicide with a stab to the heart. The knife, Mark has, very hallways of cabinets of trinkets, expensive shiny things. But just because it was intended to be ornamental doesn't mean it wasn't lethal. Mark commits suicide in December. Except he doesn't die. He wakes up in the Upside Down alone at first, and of course, at first, he assumes it's a fluke, assumes he did it wrong. He tries again and again, and eventually the entity introduces itself. And of course, it's lying to him. It's conveying that it can see that Mark is suffering. It can see that he's in the right, that he didn't do anything wrong. And of course, it wants to convince him he doesn't really want to die, that the entity can help him get revenge, get back what he lost. Of course, Mark's pleas for it to help him actually end his suffering, to let him die, fall on deaf ears. Over the course of the next few weeks, Mark tries several more times, but always ends up in the Upside Down. And the entity appeals to him over and over that he doesn't deserve this, that he deserves his life back, that they took that from him unfairly, that it can help, that it's not like them, not like anyone else, not like William, Celine, Damien, that it's there for him, that it cares about him. So each time Mark wakes back up, stitched back together just enough to keep breathing. Each time, of course, surrounded by a sickening amount of blood. We move into 1924. The entity has positioned itself as the only thing the actor has. It is showing him the only kindness he has felt in weeks. Of course, it begins to win him over. And again, it's encouraging that bitterness, that anger, that sense of betrayal, and his pride and self-righteousness. The idea that he deserves, yes, literally, yes, exactly that, 100%. His sense that what happened to him wasn't right, that he's owed something, that he deserves something, that he was, denied. So those feelings start to hold their own against just the misery he has been feeling. So the actor can't hear the entity, can't talk with the entity outside of the Upside Down. So, also, I stuck in another slide from my animatic. This is how I depicted the entity, because again, it's not like a person. This is how I depicted the entity in the Upside Down with Mark. So the actor's usage of the knife turns cautiously from like a true suicide attempt, truly trying to die, to more like exploration. He wants to talk more with the entity, because again, it's this only. It's who else is he going to talk to, right? And not only who else is he going to talk to, who else is going to keep telling him that he's right? You know what I mean? Keep telling him that it understands him. So day by day, all of the literal blood and energy it's giving him are making the entity stronger. So again, it's these ideas. Doesn't he want revenge? Doesn't he want to reclaim what's his, what's he's owed? It doesn't suggest. It's not really making these things like as they're forming this plan. It's not, oh, you should invite William back here to do this, that, or the other thing. It's, oh, well, how, if we're going to do this, that, or the other thing, how could we get William back here, right? It's leading the actor into saying, deciding on the things it wants him to decide on. So again, like at this point, the actor is not like seriously entertaining the idea of revenge, but he keeps coming back for that validation, that attention. They keep talking, and of course, each time he's inflicting more wounds on his body, which, with the metaphysics of the upside down of the house, he's being healed enough to go on living, but like he's not completely healing. He's accruing a lot of damage on this body. He's accruing a lot of pain in this body. So at a point here, sorry, I'm just checking because I really think my second screen is going to die. Around this point, William and Celine return. So their whole idea was that they would kind of let the fallout of what they'd done blow over. They were going to have not really a honeymoon because they didn't get married, but like, that kind of thing, the let's go run around and have a fun vacation, a fun romantic vacation together. They went around the globe. They figured they'd come back. Nobody would be that mad at them anymore. It would be fine. This was not the case, not least of all because, while they're away, they're realizing that this really wasn't a great thing to do. They don't regret, Celine doesn't regret leaving, but she does kind of regret the way she did. Like, she kind of feels a little bad, right? So some time away from the house, from everything, they're like, yes, exactly, yes. So, and also around this time, they come back and they're like, yeah, no one has seen or heard from Mark since you guys left, and they're kind of like, oh shit, really? So they try to visit the manor, but every time they do, it appears shut up and empty. And of course, like this feeling of being watched, of something not wanting them there. And so Celine is more convinced than ever that something's really wrong with the house. Okay, I don't have it here. Okay, we'll get to that. As far as when they're visiting the house, the entity is only letting the actor see them when it's sure he won't go to them, when it's sure he's not like in a state that he would be angry enough to talk to them or optimistic enough to talk, whatever. Only when it's sure it can control him, and only when they don't look concerned about him. Only when they look, when they're in a good mood, when they're being flirty and happy together, or when they're pissed off and annoyed. And of course, it can prod at William to remind him how the actor treated him lately, and remind him how annoying it is to try to drive up to this manor to make Celine. I guess I didn't write this explicitly. They want to make Celine's divorce official, obviously. So that they went up there again for no productive reason. So it lets the actor see them sometimes when it is going to hurt him. And then it uses that to goad him towards this idea of revenge, this idea that they are, that's deserved. So the original plan, the way it develops, is that William will be invited to the manor for a party. So, the idea is a party would work better than suggesting like a one-on-one. So other guests would notably include Abe, who I haven't talked about, but that would be another example of like a friend of the actors, like a more distant friend, and Damien, which specifically having Damien there would build William's trust that this is for some kind of reconciliation, that it wasn't going to be a fight, that Mark actually had good intentions here. So then the idea of the staged game of Russian roulette, because that's the other thing that we've talked about. The actor's body at this point is not in good shape, right? So like the body being framed as a murder victim, pinning that on William. Having Abe there, he would naturally launch an investigation. Since this would set William up. Once the investigation got close to pinning it on him, that would be the time where Mark would take William's body, and so that would make it look like William ran away, because we know within the metaphysics of the house, you can change the appearance of the body you're in. So it would look like William ran away. He would go down as a murderer and a coward. Like, his reputation would be besmirched in this way. And also he would be presumably dead at this point. So this is like roughly the kind of plan that is being hashed out. Here's a picture. So at this point, after dozens of suicides, the entity has grown powerful enough and enmeshed with the actor's continued viability enough that he doesn't actually need to, like, quote unquote, be dead to flip into the Upside Down to talk to it. Also, over this period, the actor is allowed to psychologically stabilize somewhat. He does invite his staff back. He reads as generally normal, except for the part where he's refusing to leave the house, that he doesn't have any guests over, that he doesn't let anyone close to him. And as we talked about, he's pretty much ruined his body. So being alive is now also physically painful, as was kind of the entity's plan. He does still have some, like, moments of dubious clarity, though. Like, yeah, what William did was awful, but does Mark really want him dead? Like, does Mark really want to kill someone? And this whole idea, because again, like with the original plan, it's not like it's an airtight plan, right? And like also there's kind of the idea of like him getting Celine back, which kind of doesn't fit into that plan, because Mark would be presumed dead as well, right? But like when they're talking about that, he's like, okay, well, do I even really love Celine anymore? Like, she also did that to me. And then again, does he really want to, like, yeah, he's angry and like wants his life back, but does he really want that more than just dying? And really, wouldn't William and Celine having to live with the reality that they drove him to suicide, wouldn't that be revenge enough? He's kind of thinking more this way. So the entity's answers kind of vary based on what it thinks Mark wants to hear at any given point, right? So subconsciously, these inconsistencies register, but really, I would use that word, Kenna. I would really say he's groomed enough to not consciously put together its inconsistencies. The fact that it's kind of just saying what he wants to hear, or whatever it thinks it can say to resolve those doubts, to keep him on the path to doing this rough original plan. Also, Celine has sent divorce papers, so she can't get in touch with him. She's hearing that maybe he is she's hearing that there's like movement in the house, that he's apparently not left the house. So she has sent the divorce papers, and it's basically like, okay, sign these or I'm just going to have to go to court. Like, you're not answering my letters, you're not answering the door, like, I don't know what else to do. So he signs them because at this point he's thinking it won't matter for long, but it does, like, destroy him. And the entity has tried really hard to pull this anger more than this sadness, but this kind of skews it, right? Like, he really can't take this, so he does decide again that he would prefer to just kill himself, that he just wants to die. So he's learned well that stabbing will not do it. So this is when he tries those other methods. And again, the quote from Who Killed Markiplier is the poisoned, beaten, strangled, drowned. And the entity doesn't like this, if only because what it doesn't like is him going against it, right? It doesn't like that it wasn't able to prevent him from doing this. It doesn't really care that he's killing himself some more, because it knows it's not going to work. It knows it doesn't really have to expend a high portion of its energy to keep Mark alive. That's kind of built into the house at this point, the entity having lived there for so long. And he's damaging his body in new and exciting ways to give him new and different pains, to struggle through being alive, right? So he's really just making things worse for himself. And so the entity's like, fine, go try to kill yourself. I'll be here when you're done. So there is no way out. Living is completely intolerable. The entity is in his head, and so the actor embraces his plan. So he sends the invitations out for the poker night that are the events of Who Killed Markiplier. And I will not belabor the events of Who Killed Markiplier. I think we are all intimately, agonizingly familiar with the events of Who Killed Markiplier. So again, I'm going to look at some specific scenes, some specific like angles and character motivations. So this is why, Sky, you were the one who came in late, right? I have a couple like clips here that I want to like calibrate our like characterization and stuff. So you may need to adjust your volume of the volume stream. Okay, so the first aspect I wanted to talk about, William wanted to reconcile. So let's see, what order do I have this in? All right, here's our clip. We're gonna watch the clip.
Oh, bully! And here I thought I was going to be the last guest who...
Oh, it cut off too early. Okay, but you know the quote. He thought he was going to be the last guest to arrive. So Damien's quote from later is, I know you hated him, but like, did he at this point? Really? Is that the behavior of someone who hates Mark? Like we've talked about, time away from the house like allows some clarity, right? So I don't think he hated Mark. I think he did want to reconcile. I think he felt bad about what he'd done as far as how he and Celine went about it. And maybe even, you know, the lack of communication during that time William had worked for Mark. So he wanted to reconcile. I think this is the behavior of someone who does want to, if not, you know, be buddy best friends again, be on neutral terms, like clear the bad blood, right? I also think the fact that he was the last, he thought he was going to be the last to arrive, so like he's like trending late. I think that implies some like nervousness. Yeah, exactly. It's a complicated situation. But I think like ultimately this is the behavior of someone who wanted to make amends, to clear the air, and again, maybe not to be best friends again, but to make up. Also, I found this that I did not even remember being part of my animatic. I had to put it in here for us to experience a little moment of them being happy. But so this is the events of the party that are going on. So William has shown up. There is a party. Everyone is drinking. Unfortunately, we're only staying here for a moment because this is when the actor takes William aside to make that proposition. Because, okay, so like up to the party, like the actor's kind of made himself scarce until people are drunk and start getting, less aware of their surroundings, right? So this is when he kind of addresses that elephant in the room, like, hey, let's go talk. You remember the last time we talked and we fucking hated each other, right? Not like he says that exactly, but so he takes him down to the basement, the cellar, and poses that game of Russian roulette. And the second character piece I want to talk about from Who Killed Markiplier is the fact that he did not know the gun was loaded. I don't think they used William's gun. The chief reason I think it is reasonable and makes perfect sense for William to not think the gun would be loaded is because the Mark that William knew would not have played Russian. That is an insane thing to do. His whole thing, the life is for the living thing, like, he would not risk his life. The Mark William knew would not have done that for real. So if he's proposing that, the thing that makes way more sense is that he's proposing this dramatic symbolic gesture for, oh, I guess I should ask, does anyone want me to talk more about the Russian roulette premise? Are we all up on that premise? I think we're all up on that premise. Okay. So it's way more in line with the characterization of the actor. Like, yeah, he would want to do this dramatic symbolic gesture to make amends with William. No, he wouldn't risk his own life. He just wouldn't do that. So that's why this makes perfect sense to me, right? So I don't think they use William's gun. I think they use, again, I think Mark has a lot of stuff. Mark has a lot of like curio cabinets with a lot of fancy, expensive things from different places. I think one of those is an ornamental gun. Here is a gun. Obviously, this doesn't have the spinny Russian roulette thing, but imagine it does. Okay, so something like this. Mark pulls it out. Mark sets it on the table. He says, "Hey, we're gonna play Russian roulette." William doesn't know what to do. So you've just shot your former best friend. What would you do? As predicted, Abe launches the investigation, and the entity kind of helps usher them in the direction it wants them to go. The whole idea that there's a lightning storm outside, whether or not there ever really is, whatever, it's keeping them here. No, well, I guess I should say usually yes, I think, Kenna, but I think it's fine. So, again, you just shot your former best friend. What do you do? That gets even more complicated because the body moves twice. The Russian roulette, we know it took place in the basement. That was what the broken wine bottle was supposed to be evidence of. But the body is found in the foyer. William was drunk. I don't think that's... Some people make that a really heavyweight player in the events of what happened. I don't think that was... I think it was enough that, like, it adds some uncertainty. Like, okay, what really just happened? Or rather, what really happened last night? Seeing that the body is not where he thought the body would be, there is some confusion introduced, and William's demeanor in this time, he's very standoff, he's very angry, but he's flippant, like most of all, right? So also, like we talked about, he showed up. I really don't think he hated Mark anymore, but now he's denigrating him, right? Like, he's mocking him. He's not acting upset or concerned about the fact that he died. So then there's, like, so he's probably feeling guilt. He's probably feeling fear because if he did kill Mark, what's going to happen to him? But also confusion because how did the body move? So, there's probably a couple things going on. One, if he doubles down on that animosity, if he hated Mark, he doesn't have to feel guilty or upset, or you know what I mean? If he hated Mark, maybe he's glad he's dead, right? Maybe he's glad that happened. Maybe he would have done it even if he had known what was going to happen, right? If he doubles down on that. And just kind of biding time to be like, okay, some things don't quite add up. Like, what happened? How did that happen? Why did that happen? Just biding some time to figure out what is really going on. And again, the idea of figuring out what is going on, the body moves again. And at this point, I think William's demeanor grows even more flippant and less standoffish, right? Like, he's more conversational. He comes and interacts with people more. So I feel like he has to have concluded Mark is not actually dead because he's the one who knows the most about what happened, the fact that something happened. But now the body has moved twice. I feel like the most logical thing for him to conclude is this is just a shitty bad faith prank. Like, Mark has made him think that he shot him to hurt him, to get back at him. So he's not actually dead because bodies don't move. So at this point, he's just waiting for Mark to come out and be like, haha, got you. So that William can be like, you're a fucking asshole. I'm leaving now. Right. So this is my take on what's going on here and why he's acting like that. And because that's the most logical conclusion given the information he has available to him. It's more consistent with what he knows about Mark as a person. Yeah. So that's where we're at. But then there's been a crack in the original plan. The entity had kind of expected it would just be able to take William's body. Again, like, the idea is it still wants freedom. It's been architecting this whole thing so it can get some vessel that it can leave the house with. Because right now it's like anchored to the house. It's basically possessing the house. But it has found that it can't do that, or it would have done that already, right? It has far less influence over William than the actor because of how much time and energy it has spent taken from the actor. And kind of, I think William, like he is so chaotic that I think that kind of acts as armor, right? Like, he is not stable enough for it to be able to get a good grip on him. Kenna, do you mean like at this like when it moves? I don't think there's a canonical answer to what makes it move. I don't think Mark said anything about it in the explanation live stream either. I assume the default is to attribute it to the house. Yeah. Like, yeah. Or yeah, maybe he just got up. But, so the other thing that might be going on with William and the entity's inability or limited ability to influence him, it is totally possible, I think, that Celine, like, put a protective ward on him, if we're assuming Celine has been practicing witchcraft, etc. But to the entity, this is not really the end of the world. A body that has been killed just once will be quite serviceable. It is certainly better than one that has been killed now 42 times. So, the bar is pretty low. The other thing is William's, like, erraticness, his frayed nerves, like, the state he is in, even with the entity not doing anything, somebody might get shot. And I guess I should state, I'm assuming here that any body that is killed is going to be much, much easier to take for the entity to do stuff with. So that's the premise of why this would be the next step to kind of bring William closer to its level or whatever. So it pushes a few buttons, pulls a few strings, and Abe and William are pointing guns at each other. Yeah, I guess I didn't actually decide on a specific answer, but I feel like it's immaterial. Either he gets up or the house moves him. The point is, though, that the body moves. So then the original plan shatters because Celine shows up, and this was completely unexpected. So like we talked about, she's studied a lot more. For one, William has supported her interest in this stuff, so she's had that support to keep studying it. So at this point, she's reasonably confident that kind of that dark presence she's always felt is, in fact, like a malevolent entity. I should say, in my headcanon, and I know this, like, is arguably not canon, like, arguably contradicted by canon, my William and Selena are still together. So if she'd known the entity had gotten this powerful, that things had gotten this bad in the house, she would not have let William go. She would not have let Damien go, because she knows, even if she's not still with William, she probably hears through Damien what's going on here, right? But yes, in my headcanon, she is still with William. So she would not have let them go if she thought the house had gotten this bad. But then, from home, where she's kind of worrying about how things are going, she's sensing things are like abruptly, falling off. She's sensing things are going south, calls a cab, gets taken here, whatever. So the wrench that she has thrown into the situation is the fact that she is breaking this standoff, right? The entity had two people pointing guns at each other. Didn't really matter who would shoot who. Somebody would get shot, and that would, bring that body within its range. She has broken this standoff. The fact that she has come in. See, Kenna, I don't even understand that in canon, okay? But anyway, that would be covered in part 2. You have to stay tuned for that. Once this standoff is broken, the entity is suddenly much less likely to get either of those bodies because, they've been taken out of that situation that it just tried to put them in. Not that I had to try that hard. So the entity is not capable of panic. I wouldn't say. So it's more like rage, but it's not happy about this, right? So it knows damn well it has very limited influence on Celine, but it also knows Celine. And I put a picture of her here just so we can look at her because she's pretty. And I put a picture of her here too so we can look at her because she's pretty. Celine is very overconfident. So the quote, "I'm glad I got here before it got any worse." She believes she can resolve this. She's like, okay, I basically know what's going on. I'm going to come fix it. So she steps in. She basically takes over Abe's investigation. And it's not that she doesn't know what she's doing. It's that she's too convinced she knows what she's doing, right? When you're overconfident, even if you're mostly right, you're not paying attention to the potential pitfalls. You're not being careful enough. Yeah. You're not being careful enough. So, like we had just talked about, William being susceptible to causing a physically perilous situation, like people pointing guns at each other. Celine may be prone to causing a spiritually perilous situation. So all hope is not lost, but we're rapidly having to shift to plan C here. So Celine does not care about, as in she's pretty indifferent to the district attorney. And again, at this point in my timeline, this is Auden, who she has no particular affiliation with. So there are risks in what she wants to ask them to do, but she's willing to use them. And she easily influences the party to let her take them. I'm just stating what's in canon. I have the clip here.
Look, Mark's death is a terrible thing indeed, but I fear that there are forces much darker than anything we've seen here today. I'm well versed in the arcane arts, but if you, untrained and uninitiated, can summon lightning with a mere word, we're all in far graver danger than anything we could ever hope to face alone. We're gonna have to work together if we're gonna survive this.
Celine, what are you proposing?
We need to speak with Mark.
I knew it! He's a flesh-eating zombie!
No.
Well, maybe one of those smart zombies. Homo sapiens zombifus.
No. I need to commune with the dead.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Well, it's a good thing I don't need your permission. But you've been awfully quiet through this whole thing.
With those beady little eyes.
And wearing those rags.
Maybe I shouldn't have trusted someone.
Okay, I don't know where I ended the clip, but that's it, right? She pretty quickly has everybody yeah, sure, and then also takes us, right? So my thing that I'm alleging here is the entity is helping, right? So she's like, hey, let me take this asshole. I guess we'll let the clip
So
play.
goddamn gorgeous.
It's got 15 more seconds, I think.
I'll pass.
Also,
But I feel
like
I can trust you. I sense that you have a far greater part to play in all of this. Will you help me find...
Oh, it keeps cutting me off by 2 seconds. So my alleging is that it is helping her. It's this is a great idea. putting someone spiritually inexperienced in a precarious position, let's do it. I'm on Celine's side all of a sudden. So like that would let it take their body. The plan C we've arrived on, while the district attorney hasn't really spent time in the house, they're also like not particularly, they're like average strength. They're a logical new target. But then we back out even before Celine wants us to.
What is this?
Like we don't even
This
get to
doesn't
the
answer
point.
anything. You need to go back. Go back now.
What the
Like
shit
we
is
don't
this?
get to the
Get
point
out.
where
we
we're
are not done here.
able to
Celine,
be
I think
taken
this is
because we
quite
back
enough.
out.
It's enough when I say it's enough.
Come on, partner, let's go. Come on, hurry it up.
So for a moment, it's like, oh shit, plan C, we're going to have to abandon plan C now. There's no spiritually inexperienced person placed in a precarious position by a guide less experienced than she fancies herself. What are we going to do? But then Celine takes Damien instead, who also does not have experience, right? And, you know, one could say he may share Celine's aptitude or something like that, but, like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He didn't even know Celine was, you know, deeply into the occult, as shown in canon. So she takes him instead. And the thing is, she would not have done this if she were not certain she could protect him. But, like, as we talked about, it doesn't matter how certain you are if you're wrong. The entity is more powerful than she anticipated. And this time, no one is around to stop her. Like in the clip we just watched, people come in and they say, Celine, what the hell are you doing? Like, we're taking the district attorney from you. Like, that's enough. No one's there to do that for her when she pushes Damien too far. So the entity takes Damien's body, or tries to. Of course, Celine fights like hell, but the instant she's gone too far, she's panicking because she realizes that she has just put Damien in mortal danger. So, of course, she slips up, she's overpowered, and both of them are killed. Here, you know, pulling someone's soul out of their body, we're assuming this is killing them. This is effectively, right? It's trapping them in the upside down, whatever, however you want to, you know, phrase it. The entity then finds itself with two spare bodies. And like we talked about much, much earlier, one of those bodies is disabled, one of them isn't, so it takes Celine's. So the actor can take Damien's, just as was planned the whole time, because he was always going to get a body out of this. That was what they talked about, so of course he was going to get a body. Isn't he happy? This is what he wanted. This was his plan that he wanted to happen. I'm pausing because I see Kenneth typing. Okay, I've absorbed your comments. So at this point, we're honing in on the end of my presentation. Like I said, time did not permit for me to go past Who Killed Markiplier. So some of these things I'm like going to have to elaborate on my next presentation. So as far as where we leave them, certain characters, the entity leaves in Celine's body. It wants power. It's free now. It's going to go get it. It's leaving. It's walking out. That's what's happening to it. It's not hers anymore. It's the entity's, and the entity is peacing out. The actor leaves in Damien's body, and again, like I'm not talking about it explicitly here, but like on some level, he's realizing that the only reason he has a body at all now is because there happened to be two of them, that the entity was maybe never on his side. Also, he just got Damien killed. That wasn't in the plan. So a lot of things have happened. But what's he gonna do? Stay here? What's he gonna do? So he leaves. The groundskeeper leaves. The chef quits. Ben leaves. And I know this is contentious. I know Mark says this is not true, but fuck that guy. All three of them did not die in the house, so they live a normal life and die a normal death. That's the deciding factor. They did not die in the house, so they're still like normal, fully human people, souls, whatever. The detective, and again, this is just a recap of what happens pretty much straight up in canon. The colonel is enraged to find the detective has been, quote unquote, keeping tabs on himself and Celine, everybody. He blames that for what happens, finds him and shoots him. So the detective also dies in the manor. The district attorney witnesses that and then attempts to get the colonel's gun. So this is fucking stupid. Like, grabbing for a gun that just like is clearly doesn't have the safety on it. Like, this is fucking stupid. But again, like, they just saw somebody get shot and fucking die, right? So they're like upset and they're like, no, like, I have to stop it. So it discharges in the process, it shoots them and sends them over the banister. The shot does not kill them. What kills them is hitting the ground. Yeah, exactly, Astral. So the district attorney dies in the manor. Damien and Celine, so they kind of were left tethered to the actor's former body. So while they are there, Celine kind of quickly sketches Damien in on what she knows, or quote unquote knows. They also see kind of his last conversation with the entity and then the two taking their bodies. This is the point where they blame him. So again, I didn't grab a clip of it, but you can recall Damien and Celine's last conversation with the district attorney, and kind of like they are mad at the actor, they are blaming the actor, and I think this is why. I think they see him take their bodies. And of course, it was the actor's plan the whole time, so it's his fault. And also, it has to be his fault, like specifically what happened to Damien, specifically Damien losing his body, because it can't be Celine's fault. And of course, also, Celine isn't just about to give up and accept death after what happened. Again, especially to Damien, because it was her fault, I would say. So she is like, looking for a way out. She knows she needs a viable body. They cannot stay on the actor's body. It is not viable. Turns out apparently 42 times is the limit, especially with the entity leaving. Like, the power of the house itself, the residuals attached to the house itself is not enough for keeping a body that is that damaged alive. So talking to Damien, she's told him that her plan can save all three of them. That is how, as we see, they proposition the DA as well. And of course the DA agrees because they get Damien's word that they can trust Celine. And unfortunately, this is where we must leave that. This will be continued in part 2 of my presentation. So then, William passes the rest of the night alone in the manor, save for some dead bodies, in profound distress, because really, no, like, what is he supposed to do? Like, call the cops? Like, should he leave? And besides that, like, grieving because he's lost Celine, even though it's, unclear what happened to her, it's clear, something happened to her. He can't find her, he can't find Damien. But then the district attorney wakes up and something in William's psyche snaps. Like, he is unable to comprehend that.
Oh, no, it's okay. I thought you were dead. I mean, of course, you're not dead. You're not, how could you be dead? I wouldn't have killed you. I didn't kill you. I mean, of course, of course, I didn't kill anybody. It was all a joke. Of course, it was all a joke. Were you in on this? Did Damien put you up to this? Of course he did. Damien, where are you, you rapscallion? Where are you? Celine? Oh, it's time to come out now. Ah, it was good, it was good. You almost had me.
Everyone else has left. The Colonel wanders the house alone, calling desperately for his dead friends. He loses touch with reality, and specifically, death loses its meaning because it has to, because he wouldn't have killed us, because we just got up, just like Mark's body moved. We're not dead, so Mark's not dead, so he hasn't killed anyone. He finds his gun, the gun that can shoot people without killing them. He holds it to his temple and he pulls the trigger. He's not entirely aware of what he's doing, but he's not entirely unaware of what he's doing either. William dies in the manor. So that's the end of my presentation. Anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, before I rant about how much you made us cry, I wanted to ask, maybe I missed that detail, but why was the DA invited as well?
I didn't include that explicitly, but I think my vibe is like, because again, at that point, it's also the case that Damien and the actor have grown less close. So it's kind of Damien's invited to build credibility with William, and then the DA is invited because it's kind of it's the getting the gang back together vibe, right? So it's building the pretense of this is a party to get everyone back together to reconcile, as opposed to a more one-on-one vibe.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen share so I can consolidate from my second screen. I guess I don't have to stop it. I'm just gonna consolidate from my second screen because my second screen has a separate battery and it's dying. Oh, come on now. All right. That's up to you guys if you want text to speech. I can read faster than I can listen, so I am fine with text to speech not being on. But it is a very silly, funny bot, so it's up to you guys. I'm so glad you liked my really fun presentation that was all happy and joyful the whole time.
I loved how practical it got at the beginning. Like I just learned stuff about
Look, I did all that
actual
research.
life.
I couldn't
That's
just
amazing.
present. Yeah, I couldn't just present my headcanons without without sources, and that's why I joked at some point during yours. You said something about sources, and I was like, "Oh, just you wait. They're just all in the. I have them all. They're just all in the speaker notes instead of
That's so cool.
the slide itself."
Because like I took the lazy way, I just didn't mention years in my timeline. I just said,
Look,
yeah,
which is
then
valid,
this
especially
happened.
because because time is so wibbly. But I wanted birthdays, okay? I wanted birthdays. That's really where this started.
And also I love that especially because like adding years, and even if it's an alternate universe and different from our local reality, it's still like it looks like a normal life to live, or like it's a normal world they lived in, a regular world. And
Yeah.
it makes the transition to this freaky, timeless, evil world they all end up being in much more clear, and I love that.
I will reiterate 5 years. 5 years. So like kind of you're joking the detail. I've had a lot of time. I've never pulled it together like this, but yeah, so yeah, see, Sky, that's why I spend so much time in my non Who Killed Markiplier timeline where um this does not happen. Which, so like I said, the differences are Ben sticks around, and the other difference is that, because like we talked about, Damien being like too close for Mark to trust, that's why it's important that Damien and Levia, the district attorney, were no longer that close. So Damien appeals to Levia and is like, I don't know what to fucking do. Like Mark won't let me talk to him. Mark is like being like borderline abusive to me. Like I'm done with him, but like he's not like I don't know what to do. He needs someone. So they're like, I will try, but they're like, I will try for you. And they are like historically close enough to Mark that he's that like the idea of him opening up to them is not, outlandish, but they have grown far enough away from Mark that they're not in a position that they can hurt him too much for him to be. So that's how they avoid Who Killed Markiplier. And then they're happy, and Mark goes to therapy. Oh wait, that reminds me. I said I was gonna say when we were moving on to Q&A. I'm posting a message in the other chat. Okay. Cool. I forget what I was saying. Yes, yeah, kind of exactly, yeah. Which it was hard to pull off, and I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, is it realistic? I don't know. But like, yeah, I like that metaphor, because is it realistic? Is it statistically probable? I don't know, but we sure do exist. So anyway, I spend a lot of my time there where everyone is happy. And I didn't finish my sentence. And Mark gets therapy because I've decided he gets therapy. I've decided there's good therapy, even though there wasn't in real life. Yeah. I did rewatch Who Killed Markiplier for the presentation, so that was necessary for me also. Hey, my address is 1234 Main Street, Schenectady, New York. You can send the bill there. I'll definitely get it. See, I will say there are definitely things that I just don't touch. Like there are things, and um, like I said with the William and Celine still being together thing, like I understand that that's like kind of not suggested by canon, but I think like my rationale is like they're not going to be all like kissy buddy, right? Like they're not going to come to Mark's house where he was just murdered and like do that. Like that would be a bit much even for them. So and like they're under emotional distress. Like Celine is not the type of person to be like, let's get all kissy or whatever. When she's like, I'm here to do a job. welcome back, Mars. So we're talking right now about the idea that my headcanon that William and Celine are still together, and why that could be consistent with canon. Yeah, exactly. They're not going to come to Mark's house and act unwise, and Celine is pretty focused in, pretty locked in on quote unquote fixing the situation or whatever. However ill-fated that may be. Like, she's not the type to dual wield being. She's not the type to want to be like physically affectionate while she's working. You know what I mean? Yeah, see, they're just not gonna do that. Ugh. See, here's the problem, guys. I need a break. I have like real life, like physical projects in my house that well, we can talk about something else, Mars. I'm open for questions. But I have like physical projects like in my house, like I think I said earlier, like I need to like finish painting a porch before the winter. So I cannot work on my second presentation yet. I need a break, but I'm really excited because I was really sad I didn't even get to talk to you guys about my headcanons for like date and stuff, because that's where I get no, mind that we talked about this up there the other day. He's a fashionable boy. He doesn't do that. He probably doesn't wear sandals. Mine probably doesn't wear sandals. I guess if we go to the beach, he would wear sandals. But he doesn't wear socks with sandals. That's not fashionable. He would wear socks with Crocs, though. That's different. I wear socks with Crocs. Well, it's like you just said, Mars. Like it's a they get like sticky. They like stick to my feet. I like socks with Crocs. Makes them comfy. And I wear all the time. I have a pair of I have two pairs of like frilly socks, and I love combining my frilly socks with my Crocs because it makes me think of my actor who I love, who is the love of my life. I probably have a picture somewhere of me wearing and I have the Crocs. Did I show you guys my Crocs with the little frame that I have a picture of my actor in them? So I wear my frilly socks with my Crocs, which have a picture of my actor. Oh, see, in the winter you got to do the thigh high socks, but like squished down so they look like big fluffy leg warmers, like layered. I'm a Crocs enjoyer. I think I had another sentence I didn't finish. I think my sentence didn't finish was, I feel like I have like interesting headcanons about like the like date era, like the transition between where I'm leaving off here and like getting into like up to like heist. I feel like I have like, because I feel like most of my headcanons here are either like shared, like common, so like people kind of agree on, they kind of get the bones of, or like or like dry, like here is my presentation on the series of historical facts which have led me to conclude that there was a big long world war. Which like I like those, I like talking about those, because I really I'm passionate about the ways that I have been able to reconcile the timeline into something way more self-consistent than what stands on its own in canon. But like I feel like there's interesting, this doesn't really come from canon, like I don't know, fun stuff that's in the, I say fun stuff, a lot of it in my later timeline is definitely also pretty heavily tinged with angst too, but like, you know, aren't we all? Because he's my special guy and it's comfy and it makes him look cute. Mars, that's my facts on that one. Yeah. No, he would. There was that that coat that I sent a picture of that I saw. That's basically that, but like short and a coat instead of long and a robe. I think he should wear that. I literally wanted to buy it, but I'm very large, and it looked like it was one of those one-size-fits-all businesses. And I wanted to buy it because it, like, sometimes you just want to buy something that looks like something you would want to put on your beloved, and you can't put it on your beloved, so you put it on yourself. But it looked like one of those one-size-fits-all things, and I'm big and large, so I didn't think it would fit me, so I didn't buy it. Also, I shouldn't spend money on random clothing because I don't need random clothing. But, you know. I have one. I wear it like every day in the winter. Amazon. It's just like a red silk. I mean, okay, it's not like I'm sure the actors is silk proper, and this is of course satin because it's from Amazon. But I mean, it's reasonably close to the one used in canon. I mean, I mean, how warm do you keep your house? How cold do you get as a person, right? It's not an exceptionally warm robe, but I'm wearing it over like a sweater and stuff. Yeah, my house is like, I have the thermostat set to 65 in the winter, but then like my bedroom is like 55 because it's upstairs. Yeah, he's got expensive tastes. I was at an antique store today, and there were pretty things. You know, here, I'll show you guys. I'll send the pictures. God damn it, my phone is dying too. Jesus Christ, all of my electronics are dying. Just like the characters in Who Killed Markiplier. It's okay, guys. I love pain and suffering. Okay, oh, I gotta show you that too. Where are the, let's see. Did I not take a picture of that desk? It was so cool. Okay, fine. I'll show you guys these. And then I'll send one more to one of the other channels and make a comment on it there. Okay. All right. Here are the three. Yeah, I didn't get a picture of the desk, but that end table, in my heart of hearts, I deserve an end table like that, right? Instead, I have a cheap one that I bought from, like, I don't know, probably Walmart, probably 6 years ago. I wish I had enough money to put things like that in my house because his aesthetic is high-key my aesthetic, right? Like, we are supposed to be married. Our house is supposed to be filled with things like that, and I can't afford any right now, and it makes me very sad. Anyway, so the second thing, the like gun-shaped cologne made me think of William, and then the third thing is a vintage blue tie. So like I think that goes without saying. But yeah, no, we used to have like ornamentation. Like I know it's dangerous to use the jokes like, oh, we used to be a society, but like that's what makes, like, we used to put stuff on stuff. There was also a like a penmanship thingy. Let me see. And like this vintage like library book cover, like, and then here's just a picture of somebody's handwriting. Like look at all that. Like, we don't do any of that shit anymore. People don't care what shit looks like. It's all function only. Maybe I don't want everything to be function only. Maybe I want some shit to be pretty. But yes, no, Miller, that's like that's like I need to be rich, you guys. I'm really supposed to be, oh shit, dude, that's so cool. Most of this paper stuff I just sent the picture of. Well, but Miller, it could be legible, and like you don't even have to. It wouldn't even have to be cursive, right? But like doing something pretty instead of just doing something strictly functional. Also, I was gonna say I can read some of that. Some of them I could, some of them I couldn't. I was looking at the one I actually took a picture of. That one I could if I went real slow. I feel like I was gonna say something else, but apparently my brain is kind of deciding it's done for the night. My brain's like, all right, we talked about the special interest. We're all done. Yeah. I tried really hard. I tried. There was one other thing that I don't think any of you caught in that I did, like the stylistic. There was one thing I don't think any of you caught, and I don't know if it's cheesy, classless to to point it out. So my typically when I'm like writing or talking about metacanon, I do this. I refer to Mark if I and exceptions apply when it would be unclear which fucking Mark I was talking about. Like so if I'm talking to a server, I'm probably going to call him the actor to differentiate from the 99 other Marks. But typically if I'm writing like a fan fiction or something, I call him Mark if I'm talking about pre-Who Killed Markiplier, Markiplier, the guy, and then I call him the actor post Who Killed Markiplier, because it's like it's him becoming his role, right? He's kind of losing some of his personhood, both because of what's happening to him, what's done to him, and then also like what he's doing to himself, right? So that's kind of where that distinction comes. So in my presentation, after the end of Markiplier slides, I stop referring to him as Mark and start referring to him as the actor, except A, I think I missed one spot, and B, when another character is referring to him, because obviously the other characters still think of him as Mark, they don't know what has happened to him. They don't know that he's like transfigured himself. So that was one of my other. I was really happy that you guys caught my little stuff. That made me feel really good because I tried really hard. But yeah, that one I don't think anyone caught. I haven't even heard anyone like reference that meme in a long time. Like the concept of a chat. I don't know if meme is the right word. The archetype. That's really funny. Um, so that was my presentation. Um, I don't want to keep you all here indefinitely. However, I'm down to hang out a little longer. But it's up to you guys. I don't want to. Yippee! Yay! Hooray! I was so glad that the end part hit. I worked so hard to orchestrate that too. Um, you had the exact react. This must be why Mark likes hurting us. Because I had such a like feeling of like power. I was like, yes. Yeah, I had to do that because I was like, oh, but the clip is going to end, or we're not going to get the thing. And if we're talking about Who Killed Markiplier, we have to have the thing. And then I put the music in. That was yeah. That was the other reason why I had to have the pre-show music to make sure it was picking up music played in another browser, because I couldn't have that attached to the slide because it needed to play over 2 slides. Kenna, I feel like the only part of your PowerPoint that was controversial was My Beloved. I feel like everything else, everybody was like, yeah, except Eric. Eric needed way more special guy points. And My Beloved needed more respect, god damn it. See, but I feel like in and of itself, like I didn't disagree with what you were saying about Eric. I just disagreed. He just deserves a bunch of special guy points to compensate. Oh my god, it's 4 a.m.? I guess so. I guess we have been here for that many hours. Good night. We've been here for 4 hours? What the fuck? Good night. Sweet dreams. Thank you. I appreciate you. I have a pre-emote. I'm adding my pre-emote. Okay. Somehow I read that, like my brain read that as a morning time, Kenna, and I was like, that's not right. That doesn't make any sense. And then my brain remembered the concept of AM and PM. So, which is weird because like that's the way I do time. Like that's not a normal. So I don't know. I'm just my brain's small. So. East Coast gang. A bunch of our clocks at work are in 24-hour time, so I'm fluent in both. Well, you could say that in both directions, though, Kenna. Like, okay, I don't think I'm pretty sure math majors get past simple arithmetic. Ooh, having international friends has made me all right at converting Celsius to Fahrenheit, like on short excursions, approximately in my head. That's 9:47. Yeah, that's the right now. That's right now here. Oh, whoa, hey, yeah. So I'm usually not the type of person to like see someone as their PFP or whatever, but like Sky, something about what you just said, I just read that as Wilfred saying that. I like him. He's very soft and fluffy. I'm familiar with that reference. Fun fact, I didn't really watch SpongeBob as a kid. Cadmium lore. I didn't like it. Like, it's not like I never saw, like, it's too prevalent to have, like, never seen it or whatever, but I didn't like it. Yeah, I think that was kind of the thing with me. Like the vibes were a little too, I don't know, unsettling. Which is weird because like I liked like Courage the Cowardly Dog like a lot. So like it was something like something specifically about SpongeBob that I didn't like. I don't remember any specifics, so I have no idea. That's fascinating because I've literally never met anyone else who agrees with me, kind of. Like everyone else is the other reaction like, what do you mean? Well, okay, maybe you refer to me a little bit. Sorry, maybe you agree with me only a little bit then. It could be if you believed in yourself and were pure of heart. He could. I agree. What? Fascinating. Fascinating. Mars lore unlocked. I think someone actually told me worms are, and by someone I mean I think my roommate said worms are considered bugs. She's a preschool teacher and was teaching her preschoolers that, so I trust her. Question mark. No, no, no. That's what I'm saying. I'm being told they're bugs, or at least I'm being told that preschoolers are being taught they're bugs. So I don't know that word. Never heard that word before in my life. Bug, bug. I don't think that's true. I think your sources are misinforming you. I think spiders are generally like good for the ecosystem. Like they generally eat bad bugs. I'll have to page my roommate in here to tell her about bugs, for her to tell us about bugs. That's weird. See, I used to really only be scared of house centipedes, but now I live in a house with like 100,000 house centipedes. So they're fine now. And they're like spiders where they're generally like good, like they eat bad bugs. Don't look them up if you don't like bugs and don't know what they are. If you know what they are, you don't have to look them up, obviously. Yeah. Wasps do the same thing as bees, like they pollinate stuff. Dude, our cats like to eat. Oh, segmented worms. That's so exciting. Worms are cool. We're learning so much tonight, you guys. We're sharing knowledge. We learned about sheeps. We learned about annelids. We learned about war. I get the callback point. What else did I teach you guys about? War and mourning. That's kind of what I covered. All right, you guys. I am realizing that I did not eat dinner because, as I said, I didn't want to be having stuff in my throat while I was yapping and yapping for 4 entire hours. And I have to wake up tomorrow morning and like go a place. So I think here is where I must leave you. Any last questions? Any last comments, concerns? Obviously, actor's baby girl. I don't think Wilford will marry anyone. I was saying, look, I don't think that's taking personal. Miller, you were, I was having my friend cross-check your notes on the Taylor Swift songs when we were listening to because in case those of you were not in that channel earlier, I gave her permission to play the album in the car so that I could follow up his notes. And Miller, you had flagged that one song as a Wilford song, and my interpretation of Wilford, or like, because Wilford is not with my self-insert, obviously, right? I'd flagged that, and I had been trying to articulate, like, I feel like that song had a level of commitment that I don't attribute to Wilford, and not like commitment. I feel like I don't know how to phrase this without sounding like I'm shitting on him. But like, I feel like, because it's not casual. Like I'm not trying to say he does casual relationships, because I bet there's a polyamory term for this. Like, it's not that he doesn't care about his partners. It's not that he treats the relationships casually in the sense that, like, I feel like that word brings to mind. But I feel like there's a level of commitment. Maybe it's not commitment. Maybe it's like solidity, right? There's a level of fluidity that he keeps in his relationships. Yeah. Like, he doesn't lock it down as much. So like, marriage is a locking it down, is a gridding it in that I feel like he wouldn't do. So fluidity, that's the word I've been looking for all day. Fluidity. But yeah, the other question, much easier. Actor, baby girl, real. Actor having for dinner something fancy. Because I don't cook if I can help it. So he would get someone else to do it, and I wouldn't have to cook. And I don't think I missed any other questions. See, the thing is, I'm not even hungry. I just literally haven't eaten in like 7 hours, so I like should. No, I don't. I have pizza slices located within my fridge, which I will expose to heat. See, I don't experience that. I think that's because that may be because I'm like big and large and have lots of reserves to burn. Yeah, okay, I'll leave. Goodbye, guys. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you. I big appreciate you all. I'm sending another preach emote to symbolize my preach for you all. Thank you for coming to my presentation. In part 2, I cannot promise not to make you cry, but we will be past the we'll be past the events of Who Killed Markiplier, so there will probably be less crying. Okay, I will see you all in text chat. Farewell.